Didn't do the fade in.
No, not at all. I was wondering, like, what's going on?
I forgot to do the, yeah. It just, because the music just straight stopped.
Yeah.
That was awkward. Oh, well. Sometimes these things happen. These awkward nuances, they happen.
Yeah. Makes for an interesting episode, you know?
Yeah. So we're live, Reality Observation Report podcast on a Tuesday night,
Rainy.
September 5th.
4th.
4th?
Yeah.
Oh, September. Yesterday was Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't work, did you?
No.
How did you spend your laborless day?
I don't remember, dude. I think just drawing. That's what I normally do. I think I just drew for a little bit.
Pendleton, Michael. Pendleton. You did draw yesterday?
Yeah, I drew like just a little bit, and then I read some stuff. What did you do?
I did not work on any music. I ordered a slinger delivered. Well, they didn't have a slinger on the menu, so I had to concoct my own. So I ordered Uber Eats. I ordered a skillet that had hash browns, green peppers, ham, 2 eggs on top, and cheese. And then I ordered a side of chili and a side of sausage gravy, a side of cheddar cheese, a side of onion, a side of jalapenos, and I dumped it all on there. And I laid in bed and ate that and watched David Lynch's Inland Empire, and it really fucked with my head.
What, the food?
No, the movie.
So the food probably just sounds like it just come out the same way as it went in.
Oh, it did today. Definitely did. But it was nice. It was a very laborless day.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of it, right?
Yeah, to not labor. I don't think I've ever had a Labor Day off, to be honest with you. I think that was my first Labor Day off.
I've had so many Labor Days off.
Really? Well, yeah, because I've not a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So tonight we will be discussing memories, right?
Mm-hmm. If we can remember.
Yeah, that'll be our topic of discussion, and not just the boring what are memories and that sort of thing, but memories in regards to false memories, repressed memories, the idea of maybe how dreams could very well affect your memories, just kind of the more esoteric, I guess, approach to memories, or more, is that the right word? Existential approach to what memories are, I guess.
Basically, just pretty much malleable.
Yeah. Memories and how they affect things and their role in our everyday lives and how they can shape us. We are working on some guests. I've got some people I've been talking to. I'm trying to get a alien abductee
That'd be cool.
to do an interview. I've also talked to some other various avenues for some smaller actors, smaller musicians. I'm going to have my friend, hopefully Far Out, on. He's a rapper slash comedian slash book writer. So we are expanding, yeah. So if anyone listening has any suggestions, or you know someone that would be interesting for this, or if you're one of our friends and you want to do it, we're down.
Yeah, more than welcome.
Just trying to expand the program.
Yeah, get more dialogue.
Yeah. So you said you were reading a book about memories?
Yeah, just started it. It's called The Brain, The Story of You. And they're talking about exactly like what you just said in the intro, is how do you like acquire memory, and where is memory, and why is memory not exactly how it is. And they gave an example of, say you're at a birthday party and you're there with a friend and their significant other, and then everything just goes fine, and then a year later they get divorced, and you think back, oh, they were kind of behaving a little differently.
Right.
Is it because the present moment is now altering your memory, because you probably weren't picking up on that then?
Right. So it's kind of like you're using what you know now, and it's distorting what you thought you remembered, or what you think you remember.
Yeah, I always heard that when you recollect a memory, that it's being distorted. Like every time you access it, it's going to be distorted by something.
Right. I think that I was reading this thing today that there's like different ways that we recall memories, or there's like a recall of a memory, a reiteration, something else. There's like 3 R's that have to do with memories. But there's different ways that memories are sparked. Like there's one way that's called a odor evoked autobiographical
Isn't that the most common one?
memory. Yeah, that's a smell.
Yeah.
So when you smell, so like if you're, for me, I used to have these crazy dreams about these people that were covered in boogers, and it was a reoccurring dream that I had all the time. They had tomato plants in their front yard, and there was a ghost in their basement, and they were covered in boogers, and I was terrified of this dream. It was a very lucid dream, but their house had a distinct smell. It was fucking weird. I can't explain the smell. But through this dream, eventually I became aware in the dream, and I defeated the Casper-looking ghost in the basement. And when I came upstairs, the people were not covered in boogers anymore. They were just normal people.
So you just defeated the demon, but
Yeah.
the smell was there.
But the smell, yeah. So like I'll be, every once in a while, I'll get that smell, and it'll trigger me back into that dream, and I can remember it or like visually see it.
like vividly.
Yeah.
I think it's because where the brain has the memory and has the oral factory place is relatively close to each other. Like almost like I always heard that like memory is right here, and then for where your scent is, it's like right next to it on the left and right sides.
Yeah, that's
So it doesn't have to do much traveling.
yeah. So I think that is so your amygdala and your hippocampus,
Yeah, your hippocampus.
yeah, handle emotion and memory, and the way that your scent works is not the same that your eyes touch, feel, that sort of thing. They don't go to the same place. I think it's the orbital frontal cortex or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that where
Your orbital prefrontal cortex.
yeah, that's where the touch and all that stuff goes through, but the smell thing doesn't. So it like triggers some sort of, it triggers a different. That's why you have the memory. Like you will never get. I don't think you'll ever like if I touch something, it won't like take me back to some shit, but a smell will.
Unless you have that the psychic impressions of things.
Oh yeah.
Like where you touch that glass and you see the history of that glass. Like you in the history of that glass. Because it's kind of like
Is that a real thing?
Yeah. Like
It's
people,
possible?
yeah, like where you can just like touch random things like you can't really get impressions. The whole idea is like you get impressions from like who has all touched that glass.
Oh shit.
Like if you touch like Jimi Hendrix's guitar, you can see like who made it and stuff like that.
So there's like psychic people that do that?
Yeah, but it's more on the lines of themselves. So like they get some sort of impression of like when they first played with this song or this guitar or whatever it may possibly be. They can get like the impressions, kind of how if you smell one of the first candies you ever ate.
Right.
Or like the candy that you ate in a specific location that it brings you back. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So some people have that sort of, like I don't have that at all. Like I can touch, like we said, touch anything and it just doesn't.
Yeah, I don't get that. I get
Unless it's like a pet, then you can kind of get like, oh, this felt like my old pet. Something like
oh
that.
yeah, that's true. Or like carpet. If you
Yeah.
walk on like carpet with your bare feet or something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, at my lake house, when I walk on the dock with my bare feet and it's been a while, I get like, but it's not the same sort of elicitation of the smell.
Yeah, smells are really weird, especially like, I don't know, like when you're growing up and you go back home, or you grow up and then you move out and you come back home, the smell of your house kind of just like brings you back. Like, oh, I remember that. Like if your dad's outside like grilling, like, oh, I remember when I was a kid.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
him grilling because like the smell of the charcoals.
Yeah, I get that. When I walk by somewhere that has this, I think it's like straight up just regular charcoal, but it throws me back to like Sundays when I used to go to my grandparents and my papa barbecued in the backyard. It's like immediately takes me to that place.
I probably should have done some research on that, because as soon as what I thought of is, what is the evolutionary purpose to that? It's smelling something and instantly having a recollection of it. There has to be some sort of
Maybe,
reason.
yeah, maybe that's how, whatever we evolved from, whether it be apes or moles or something, maybe smell is how they found their way around.
You got it in the back.
Yeah, so like if let's say that we did come from apes or whatever, they smelt, they're in the jungle, so everything looks alike, so they go by smell. So they could smell when they were getting closer to like their nest or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's like something that's that like dogs do. Dogs are all about, because their noses are like a million times more.
Yeah, I always heard that if a dog smells a pie, we smell the pie. They smell like the flour, the sugar,
Yeah.
The fruit that's in there.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know, maybe I've heard that dogs can find their way home by scent. Like if let's say Kane like runs outside and like runs 4 blocks away, he'll find his way back by scent. So
Yeah.
maybe that's why. Maybe that's what it is with us. It's some. It was kind of like we were talking about stuff we don't use anymore.
It's just
our-
kind of like just a legacy
Yeah.
sensory input.
Yeah. Or it could just totally be related, because the thing in your brain that picks up on smells is so close to your memory.
Yeah, it could be that too. But I was like, man, I probably should just look that up because that's actually really interesting. Like, what is the purpose of having that?
Yeah.
So that was one of them. What are the other ones?
Well, there's like different parts of your brain that do things. So like the orbital frontal cortex is like earlier memories or perception. So that's kind of like the smell thing. It takes you back to previous ones. And then the left inferior frontal gyrus is later memories, more conceptual memories. If like a perception is a setting, a place, a time, and then a conceptual is like science or math, like a concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like a philosophy or something.
Yeah. So like the different parts of the brain are responsible for this thing. I actually I watched this video of this guy. This was back in like 1905 or something when they didn't know a lot about the brain, but this guy got into a bike accident. Like he was on a bicycle. He's like 26, and something messed with his head, and he was having these seizures. So they didn't know much about the brain back then, and I can't remember his name. But so these doctors cut off what they thought were certain parts of the brain, but to this day, they found out later that it was the amygdala and the hippocampus. So they cut slivers of it off. So he literally only remembered conceptual constructs.
Wasn't he talking about he couldn't remember the future? Like, or not remember the future, but like the idea of the future he couldn't do.
Yeah.
Whereas like they asked him about like what would it be like to be at a beach. He's like, all I can think about is blue.
Yeah.
But he couldn't think about like, oh, what the weather would be like, what I'm gonna do with my family.
Right,
He couldn't
right.
yeah.
Like he could live and he could learn things, but there was just something fucked up with his memory. And then when he died, they took his brain out, and they knew more about it then. But then they realized that they hadn't cut it all off, so that's why he was still able to retain some of the information and stuff. But can you imagine, like back then, you're just like, oh, we don't really know what we're fucking doing, but we're just gonna, literally cut this dude's cranium off, pull his brain out, and cut slivers of it off,
Yeah, it's weird.
and then expect him to, come back. I can't see how that's like ethical.
There's this is not really do with memory, but what they did with brains is there's this guy, I don't remember his name either. I think it was like in the late 60s. He like shot up this place and killed a bunch of people and wounded a bunch of people. And then they found out later that the day before he killed his mother and sister. And then he had a note that was wrote, and it seemed like a suicide note. He said in the note, I don't know what's been going on with me lately, but I've been having these thoughts. I'm paraphrasing this as best as I can remember it. That he can't remember, or he can't figure out why he's having all these thoughts, and he just can't deal with it anymore. So what he hopes that everybody does is, he ended up dying in the shootout, is use his brain for studying to see what caused him to do that. And they like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. So they opened it up, like his head after the autopsy, and they found a tumor in it, pressing against.
Oh shit.
So like that tumor was causing him to have like these crazy fucking thoughts of kill people.
Yeah. Do you think and I kind of thought about this today too. So if our brains are electronic or electricity, because that's what's happening, right? In your hippocampus, it's neurons firing, so it's creating electricity, right?
Basically.
So do you think that there's a possibility that it turns into kind of like a radio kind of like how we've talked about before?
Like consciousness is
Yeah,
a receiver.
Yeah, what if like it's causing some spark, but it's picking up some demonic or alienistic personality or consciousness, and then they can like take control of the body?
I know that they can kind of do, or maybe this is like fictional, but they can do these waves to neutralize your brain, like shut it down. So it would be like impossible that if you shot some other sort of, wave frequency.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a sound frequency that's just so high pitched that like can make your ears bleed.
Right.
Why not have like an electrical impulse that
Or it
just,
can make you almost like unconscious.
yeah, just shut you down immediately.
Yeah. So do you think, because sometimes I just wonder, And that's obviously playing into like the paranormal aspect of it. But if you know, like when people get like possessed, like if someone gets possessed, could that be triggered by something in their brain?
Yeah, I don't really believe in human possession though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't believe in that at all.
Dude,
I think it's either there's something fucked up in their head, or it's just what they're calling it. Like
Yeah.
I just
I don't know. I've seen some. Have you looked up videos of exorcisms and people being possessed?
No, I can't do scary stuff.
I just
Like when I watch it, I'll believe it, but like when as it's going on, it'll freak the shit out of me. But for the most part, I don't think that a demon, an entity, is actually entered somebody's body and controlling their body like some sort of symbiotic suit.
So do you think that it's just something within them?
Yeah, like they're like that one guy was saying who just like shot up everybody and killed his family. Something was happening with his brain. There's cases of like this guy who just couldn't control himself for being a pedophile, and then they found out that he had a brain tumor, so they cut it off, and all the pedophile shit in his head just went away, and then he started having it again, and they checked his brain out, and the tumor was going back.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, I think that we don't give a lot of credit to the brain and what small little altercations to it will actually have on you. Like if you get hit straight in your forehead in a car accident, it can drastically change your personality.
Right.
So I just think that there's something going on with them. It's kind of like the idea that.
But why do you think it goes towards like violence?
I think it's because that's what our amygdala is. It's like that's our old brain. That's why when you get older, your prefrontal cortex kicks in, and then that's when actually rationalizing stuff happens. Like they did studies on a teenage brain. It's no different than a child's brain. That's why teenagers will more than likely act in risky behavior because they're not thinking it through.
Right.
But I think there's probably something going on with their brain. It could be like, remember was it like the Irrigat root or something that was going on? They were thinking like those people were possessed or witches or whatever. It could be just that. Maybe there's some sort of weird bacteria that was in a water. Because every possession that I've ever heard of is always like in a third world country where the good news is being spread.
Right.
Like that sort of thing.
Well, and I wonder if what you were subjected to previous to whatever goes on in your brain. Like when you're normal, if you have thoughts of, if you have dreams that you kill someone or you see a lot of violent films, so that kind of stuff is stored in your memory, and then when this tumor happens, it's like pushing on that part, so it's kind of melding it into your current state, so you kind of like become whatever that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sort of like just becoming like you had the catalyst was that thing in your head to just spark up everything that you've kind of experienced.
Right. And then whatever brain activities happen. Because I'm pretty sure I read this thing where it said that the reason that we don't remember our childhood is because neurons are firing, or neurons either are firing or are not firing in your hippocampus. So when that's happening, they can't. Once a bunch of new neurons fire, like whenever you get, I think it's like 8 or 9 or something, it basically just like knocks out all of that old memory stuff.
Yes. In the book, it was saying that you're developing so many new connections and pathways.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And then as you get older, it's kind of like if, you hear different sounds, how do you know what sound is coming out of somebody's mouth as language? You can't really tell. So you're building up all these pathways, and then as you get older, you're just getting rid of them.
Yeah.
So like I really think that also along with that is the idea that there's nothing really to describe anything too when you're so young. When you're 2 years old, like you may know this is blue because you identify that sort of shape and color as blue, but you don't really understand blue. So like you're showing your kid like flashcards or something, and like they're 2 years old and they're like blue. Like, oh, that's very good. You did a good job. It's because they identified that color as such, but they don't understand that color is blue.
Right.
So they don't really have a lot of language.
You could tell a kid that blue is what we consider blue is actually yellow. So then when they move forward in life, they'll always call blue yellow.
Yeah. I always thought about doing that.
Yeah.
It's like just making up gibberish.
To your child.
Yeah, gibberish language.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's kind of like they can't really differentiate between, like they know that's a dog, but they don't know that's like a German Shepherd dog. They just know it's a dog or that's a kitty or something. But I think that with the lack of like terms for specific things.
Right.
They don't, because we'll just sit in this room and we have a black couch. You're wearing a green shirt. It's kind of like if you look at my shirt, for an example, you know that it's red, you know that it has yellow on it, and then there's a white circle. What does that represent? Well, if you've never seen The Flash at all, you would have no idea what the shirt means.
Right.
It could be anything. But if you've seen The Flash, now you're putting it into context of maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's the comic book, and then different meanings go to it. So, like, who was The Flash? Was it Wally West, or is it, Barry Allen? It just depends on when you started reading The Flash, that type of thing. So just by looking at the shirt, it actually represents nothing.
Right.
It's just what you're putting the context to. And so kids don't really have that much context to put to things to, so they can't really remember certain things.
Right. Yeah. I feel like life, how you perceive life, is all based on memories and how they've built up from, day one or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't know what this was what these were until I looked it up, and these are
Like dampeners.
soundproofing blocks, so that was built on that. I know that that's a door. I know that that's an air conditioner. I know that that's a camera. I know this is a computer. Just based on memories. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm storing things from memory and I'm recalling them in the moment. So that kind of like brings me to what I was thinking about like false memories, because there's sometimes, for an example, yesterday when I was watching that movie Inland Empire, it was fucking with my head, and I had to like pause it and like think, because there was like stuff happening and I had to like digest it because I really wanted to understand this movie. And David Lynch's films are like puzzles that you got to try to put together. So I was digesting it, trying to think about it. But then I saw this scene in it, and I was like, I've seen that scene before. And I kind of like went through a couple different scenarios. Had I watched this movie sometime, fallen asleep, woken up, seen that exact scene, it's in my head? Or did I have a similar dream or something? So then I started like freaking out because I'm like, well, why do I know this scene? You know what I mean? Why do I feel like I've seen this before? Is it like, where does that memory come from? And then I thought, and then I've been thinking about this other memory I have. And I asked Mercedes, I was like, what were we watching when I saw a dad or a mom walking through a grocery store with a small child, and the kid was doing the cart, and they kept hitting the back of people's ankles? And I accidentally do that to Mercedes sometimes, and she gets really pissed off. But I was asking myself, why do I have that memory? And so I like YouTubed it. I'm like, did I see it on YouTube? Was it on a show? Or was it a dream I had? Or is it something that will that be me and my child in the future? Because the scenario or the memory that I have, this kid's doing it, and the people turn around and see this kid, and they're like, oh, it's okay when it's a kid. And the parent is like, you got to stop doing that. You can't be doing that. But then this adult gives this kid this little lecture, and then the adult is like, all right, now let's go do one. And then they go hit someone in the back of the ankles. But is that something I saw, or is it a dream I had? I can't remember like why it's in there. You know what I mean? So that's like kind of what like
There's also things that are so common that you think that they're a memory too. Like, for example, is you've entered this one room so many times that it feels like, man, I kind of remember this place. But like you've entered, not like necessarily like you've never been there before, but I don't know how to explain it exactly. But it's just, you're so familiar that it's actually taking a memory and applying it to something that you've never had experience before. Because that seems like very common.
Yeah.
You might have seen that a bunch of times or thought about it. Like, man, if a fucking kid hits me in the back of the ankle, and then all of a sudden you see it, and then it happens like, oh, where did I see that from? That type of thing.
Yeah.
I've been really toying with the idea of future memories, because like the whole idea, if we do live in a block universe and time is just kind of like all existing all at once, is how is it not possible to not have a future memory, if that makes any sense at all? So say like when you have deja vu, it feels like a memory, right? Like, whoa, I'm experiencing this. Well, maybe it's a future memory that was stored in your head, and it only just sparked up as the present happened, as the memory, and it made it feel like deja vu.
Right. So it's whatever happens in the future somehow bouncing off something or something and hitting you in your head.
Yeah, because if you believe that the universe I think we've talked about this before, which is the universe is like an eternalism view rather than a presentism view, that means you exist as 1 year old as well as whenever you're going to die.
Right.
But you're just experiencing now as right now. So if that all happened or is happening simultaneous, there might be some sort of link and connection to it. But then it makes me think about your atoms go through a 7-year cycle. That 7 years ago, you have all different atoms.
Huh.
So like, how is it still you?
And maybe like dreams and weird memories that you can't recall where they came from. Maybe those are like pieces, some sort of electric signal that got stuck into the new atoms or something.
Maybe. But the false memories, I think, is really common with people. It's kind of like if you grow up with, let's say, a bunch of friends in your neighborhood, and one person ends up breaking the tree limb on accident and falling down and like hitting their head, and then all the other kids are there. When you grow up, how different is that story with everybody? Like,
Right.
Like, no, you weren't on the branch. You were standing down. I was on the branch.
Right.
But you actually weren't on the branch. That type of thing.
Right.
'Cause I really think about that. If you go back in time to experience your memories, they won't be at all. They'll be the idea of it will still kind of be there. The tree branch was broke. Somebody did fall, and friends were around. But how it specifically happened is going to be different. Because if they have cases where that's kind of why, like, I don't understand with the eyewitness testimony is the number one way to convict a person.
Right.
But it is the worst source of any sort of like actual event happening.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, when you have adrenaline pumping through you, and let's say you're witnessing a robbery, and the robbery is taking place at night underneath a street lamp 25 feet away from you, and you're seeing it like, oh my gosh, I see like, let's say it's a carjacking. I see the robbery of the carjacking, and then the car drives off, and then like the let's say the officers, getting your story, like, oh yeah, it was this type of person. Oh yeah. Like, but they're just they're telling you something.
They're leading you
to a way to get to somewhere, right?
You have a vague memory, but they're leading you to kind of pinpoint it. They're trying to affect what you actually saw.
Yeah.
By that this show on Netflix called Making a Murderer. And this happens a lot actually, where like the detective will be like, "Well, what happened? Tell us what happened. What happened? Did you see someone die?" Like in Making a Murderer, this slow kind of kid who was kind of basically. Do you know the premise of it?
I never even heard of this.
Oh, okay. So it's on Netflix. Basically, this dude murdered, or no one knows for sure, but murdered this chick on his property and then like hid the body, and his nephew, who's like kind of slow, was involved in it. But the detectives are asking him, this slow guy, like, "What did you see? Anything, Brendan? What did you see?" And he's like, "I didn't see any. I didn't see." It's funny the way he talks. I didn't see nothing. He's just very funny. I feel terrible for the kid. But anyways, so they're asking him, they're like, "Well, what did you see? Did you see someone get?" And this is after hours and hours of interrogation. And he's like, "Did you see someone get murdered?" And he's like, No. But then something in his brain clicks, and he's like, "Okay, well, I'm only going to get out of here if I tell them what they want to know."
Yeah. That happens a lot with convictions.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, "Did you see someone get murdered?" He's like, "Yeah." And then they're like, "Well, how did they kill him, Brendan? What did they do?" And he's like, he doesn't say anything. And they're like, "Well, did he shoot her?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then they're like, "Well, where did he shoot her?" And they're like deducing what actually happened, or what they think happened, into his head. So they're like they're sculpting the memories, because if he was there and he saw it, the memory, like you said, like adrenaline and stuff, I think when that kind of shit happens, your memory isn't like really...
Yeah, it's going to be spotty, and you remember like different things
right.
rather than actual what happened there.
Right, so I think that's what happened, and then they sculpt it into what they want it to be.
Yeah, they do that a lot with people who are convicted of a murder. Like, I remember seeing like shows about this when I was younger, as they're sitting in there, and it's been hours and hours of interrogating them. and the person's just getting tired and hungry of all these questions, going on and everything, and they finally just admit to the murder, and they never did it.
Yeah, I think I think it was called like the West Memphis 3. It was like 3 younger kids.
Oh yeah.
And they that same thing happened, and then they just got out like recently.
Yeah, I remember they did an article about it because Eddie Vedder was like totally about like.
Oh, there was shows on HBO about it. It was like a humongous thing.
Yeah, but they didn't do it at all.
No.
No, but they conned them into admitting of their murder.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sort of stuff happens. And then same thing like with when you're a kid, and like I said, like if you go back and somebody's trying to describe you a story, false memories happen quite often. You can actually implant them yourself because you're like, I don't really remember that. And then you go home and you think about it and like, oh, actually I remember this, like this thing specifically happening. And then keywords like what you're saying can actually happen. There's a study that this girl did, and I forget what university, but she showed them videos of car crashes, and she asked them how fast these cars were going. And with one group, she said, how fast do you think these cars were going when they crashed into each other? And then she said to another group, how fast were these cars going when they smashed into the other one? And when she said crashed, it was a lot slower than the word smashed. So like words can actually play on your memory as well.
Right.
It was like significantly higher on how fast they think they're going.
Yeah.
But then like I said, if somebody tells you something like, do you remember that one time we were doing this? You're like, no, I don't remember that at all. And then you go back home and you're thinking about it like, maybe we did do that. And then you start like, okay, I remember that now. Like this was playing, that was going on. And then you go back to your friend and he's like, actually, never mind, dude. It was somebody else. How did you like create this shit in your head?
Right, because you were led into it to believe that it happened. So you're kind of like, well, I trust that person. I take that person's word for it. And then your brain starts to like concoct these things.
Yeah, these weird stories.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny about that is like people that black out drunk all the time. When you get blackout drunk, oxygen is cut off from your brain. So the things that are recalling memories and storing memories, that's not going on. And that's why like people that are like super raging alcoholics that black out all the time, like I feel like it makes remembering things very difficult and blurring the lines between what is real, what was fake, because you don't fucking know. You don't remember going to bed. It happens to me sometimes. I'm not saying I'm an alcoholic, but like when I'm like drained from the day, I have a couple glasses of whiskey, I fall asleep. I don't remember falling asleep, and that happens for prolonged months at a time. Then I really start to question things, and I think that's what happened last night when I was watching watching that movie. I'm like, fuck, what is this shit?
Yeah.
And like, well, I don't remember going to bed last night.
I don't know if it's like 100% true or not, but I've heard that when alcoholics do finally become sober and clear, they feel like chunks of their lives are completely
right. Same
gone.
with like drug addicts.
Yeah, like they just missed out, and like they don't really recognize that person, like especially like later in life, is that person was them. Right. It was just somebody else.
Right. And that happens a lot with like people when you're like blacked out and you like meet people. It's like the person that they're meeting when you're blacked out, that's not you.
Yeah.
So then that
I think that's like the animal you.
Yeah, I think that right. I think, and that's like the dark primordial entity that lives within you.
Mm-hmm.
So like when people meet you in that state, they remember you as that, but that's not really you. So then it creates this whole fucking glitch in the system on both accounts, especially if it's someone that you interact with a lot.
Yeah, because it affects the stuff going on in your brain. But I don't know. I just think that it's really weird how we can just put fake shit in our heads.
Yeah,
and believe it is true.
Well, and like think about like traumatic situations that, let's say
like when you're a kid or just as an adult.
Anytime, like let's say like an alien abductee. If that, let's just say that it's real, it does happen for this purpose, but then people go into it's rain. But then I was like, what is that? But then people will go into like what is it? Hypnosis. What's it called? Reduced retractive hypnosis or something.
Oh, I've never
where
heard
they
of that.
hypnotize you and they walk you back through the shit to get you to the memory.
I don't really believe in hypnosis either.
I do. I've seen videos of it, and it's they're I don't think that it's like I don't know what it really is, but they're making you go back and relive these memories, and it happens to people that
see. Okay, I've heard of cases like this, and this is kind of why I think it's bullshit. One of these people, I don't remember exactly the girl's name or the doctor who was performing this, if they can be called doctors. Basically, she felt that she was raped, and she went back in those memories, and this guy doing it helped navigate her to it to realize that she was raped by her father. And so she cut off all ties to her father after that, and was like hated him. He ended up passing away, and her dad was like, "I never did anything such thing to you."
That was in
Was that a show or something?
no, it was in a book.
Oh.
It's in Biocentrism,
Is it?
I think.
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry.
And that never happened.
Yeah,
The
it's in
dude, like,
no,
walked
it's
her back.
yeah, it's regressive. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
My dad just said, yeah, it's regressive hypnosis. But yeah, this book I'm reading, Forgiving Yourself, or The Art of Forgiveness, or something, How to Forgive Yourself, and it's about that. It's about that same story, and that's the girl that subconsciously wanted to be in a relationship where she was abused.
Yeah, but like that never fucking happened.
Right,
So
right.
like, I don't know. I don't.
Well,
when it comes to like these weird things with your brain and remembering things and stuff like that, I'm at a high level of skepticism about it.
Well, here's the thing, though. There's always going to be the yin and the yang, the yes and the no, the white and the black, the right and the wrong. There's always going to be instances where there's a crook and where it's actually real.
Yeah.
But I've like seen videos, real hypnotic videos of like people, like this person will go to a therapist. This instance I'm thinking of, it's this dude going to this therapist, and he's like, I'm just very depressed. I have thoughts of suicide all the time. I don't know why I feel this way. And he went and got regressive hypnosis, and realized he was sexually abused by a family member when he was a kid. But he'd totally forgotten about it, because I think either it happened before that 8 or 9 mark, when all that shit goes off in your brain and basically resets you to that 8 or 9 moment. I think that's called, oh God, what's it called? Childhood amnesia. Amnesia. That's what they call it. That's why you can't, no one, like, you can ask anyone, tell me about a story when you were 5. No one will be able to give you an answer. None of us can remember.
Well, I've had memories. I remember talking to my parents about my great-grandmother's house in Springfield, and we would go there on holidays. And I remember laying there. It's my very first memory I've ever had. I think I had a nightmare. I woke up, and to my right was the bed my parents were sleeping in. I was on like this little makeshift bed, and then I looked over to my left, and there was, because when you're a kid, there's these things. Everything just looks huge.
Right.
There's the closet doors, and right by the closet doors was the exit to the room. Well, she passed away when I was just turned 3. That was my very first memory.
Yeah, but
And I
are you
remember
sure?
asking my parents about, here's the layout of the house they've been to, and they're like, that's exactly how the house was.
Yeah, but how do you know that you didn't pick that up
From them.
talking about it? Because
But why would they talk about that one moment where I woke? I don't remember what happened with me, but why would they talk about where the bed is, and how come I remember it being
maybe
so
they
tall?
didn't. Maybe you just formulated that. Because here I have a very similar story. My dad's gonna have to tell me. He's listening. I don't remember what age I was, but I don't remember this. But my dad, I guess I was bouncing around on the couch when I was a little kid, and I fell out of the window, and my dad dove after me out the window. I can see it in my head like it's a real memory. Like I was present there.
Mhm.
But the only reason it is because they've told me the story. And they told me the story in detail. So I don't even, where
I see what you're saying.
where they lived at the time, I think I was like 3 or 4 or something when we moved away from there. I have no recollection of that, of living there. But I have a memory in my head of what this place looks like just by pictures and descriptions. But I don't really remember it. It's not a real place. I have dreams about it, but
Yeah.
it's not. I was never physically, mentally aware there. Same when we first moved from that place to another place. Like my parents got me a dog, and they said that they asked me what I wanted to name the dog. And I said I couldn't pronounce Logie, or I couldn't pronounce doggy. I said Logie, so that's what we called him. But I have a vivid memory in my mind of that moment. But I think it's just because of them.
Yeah. That happened to me when I was a kid. I fell down some steps. My dad had this giant ladder, and I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. It was this giant ladder, and my dad was vacuuming. And so how you walk in the living room, at the very end of the living room was the steps going up to the rooms, because it was an apartment, and then the ladder was on like if the ladders went up to the left, the ladder was on the right, and my because my dad just had this giant fucking ladder for some reason, and my mom walked into the living room carrying groceries, and my dad's vacuuming, and he like looks at her and like waves like, hey, like welcome back home, and then she sees me falling down the steps, hit the ladder, and the ladder falls and I go straight through it, and then like through the things where it like crushed my head.
Yeah.
I have zero memory of that at all, but in your case where like you remember it vividly, I don't. All I know from that is their point of views.
Yeah.
So I don't really piece it together in my head as like, oh, I remember when the ladder fell.
Right.
I don't remember this shit at all.
Right. I have a very pictorial memory, I think is the correct term. And I think that seeing pictures from me in that time mixed with the stories created memories.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder how much of our actual memories actually really happened.
I have no idea. I would
if it happened how you remember it.
How I remember it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of want to just take a guess at it, and this number is just me making shit up, which is probably like 30 to 40% of it actually being really there.
Yeah.
Because like I said about earlier is the guy and the girl getting in an argument at a birthday party, or not getting an argument at a birthday party, but you thinking that later on, because a year later they're getting a divorce, that you're like, oh, I kind of gathered some of that. That actually is not real. Like you didn't really gather that. You're just thinking back. And like I said, you're distorting memories every time you access them. So I don't really think it's actually even close. I'm just making the number up close to 100% at all.
Yeah, it's really weird to think about too, going into like the dream aspect of it, because I can recall my dreams pretty well. If it becomes a lucid dream and I become awake in there, I can recall it like it was real life, you know? And then you mix that in with real life memory. You throw a little bit of alcohol in it. You throw a little bit of time in it. And then years down the road, how do you know that what you're remembering? Like, how do you distinguish between dreams and reality? And how much is blurred there? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people like pathological liars. They're pathological liars because they created memories of what they're lying about. When someone like a pathological liar tells a lie, they're very pictorial people, so they have a pictorial memory. They create that scene in their mind, and then it's stored. You know, like if, for instance, let's say you're 20 and you're living with 3 other guys and you need some money, so your roommate keeps money under his bed or something, and you steal $200 from him. He comes to you and says, dude, did you steal my fucking money? And you're like, what are you talking about? No, I didn't steal your money. The other night we had people over and I saw this chick in your room. As he's saying that, he's creating that scene in his head. So then when this comes back up in a week, it is real now. Like, he created that false memory in his head and he believes it. And if it comes up 5 years down the road, it's going to be the same thing,
Yeah.
It's embedded now.
I always thought, like, here's an idea. I want to know what is true. So that's funny. So you have, I'm going to use the allegations that they had on Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump says, look at them. No, I didn't do any sort of sexual misconduct with them. And the girls are saying you did, right?
Right.
Put them both on a lie detector test, because Donald Trump believes he did not do it. These girls believe that they did do it, or he did do it. And then you see what the polygraph says, and they're both true. So what is the truth?
Right.
And I think it's because, this is my idea on it, is because in his mind, he didn't do anything wrong, and in their minds, he did do something wrong.
Right.
So I'm just using that as an example of something.
No, but that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So like, if you put that dude up to a lie detector test, because all a lie detector test does is, check certain things that's going on with your body, to see if you're lying. Because there's different things that your body will do to indicate you're lying. Like your sweat glands will open, shit like that. That if you actually believe it to be real, then it's going to be okay.
Right.
But if there's any sort of thing like, I remember clearly opening up that little box that he had, because I remember him telling the numbers or me the numbers, and I grabbed out $200. You're gonna fail it.
Right.
He created this idea in his head.
Right. Well, and I think that happens a lot. The light with pathological liars, or people that there. I don't know what the term is, but there's literally people that will let's say it's a shitty girlfriend in a boyfriend, and let's say the boyfriend is like a fucking dickhead and he cheats on the girlfriend. He comes home, she sees a text in his phone or something, and he's like, I didn't do anything, I don't know what you're talking about, and like literally will die before he says that he actually did anything wrong, and he convinces himself that he didn't do it, and he basically like absolves the memory of it. But I guess that has to do with like truth.
Yeah.
Like telling the truth. But I guess the moral or the point is that memories are not, I don't think they're trustworthy things.
No, that's why I don't understand why that is the most used way to convict somebody.
Yeah, like the law system. The law system, someone's fate is determined by the recollection of facts and who can get better credible people to recollect those facts. Now, obviously, there's the physical evidence part, right? Like if there's physical evidence that points to it, that's different. But if there's no physical evidence, you're basing it off of people's memories. Like, let's say there's a case where someone's convicted on trial for murdering someone. Pendleton Whiskey, Uncle Kurt. We should have my Uncle Kurt on. He used to be a DJ at KC95.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. He loves Howard Stern, too. He'd probably school us. Well, I know he would school us, but it'd be cool. He's got a good radio voice. But so like...
So he's got a face for radio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if... What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So if... Let's say this murder is on trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have not a shred of evidence. They caught him roaming the neighborhood. They brought him in, and his shoe was in the backyard or some shit like that. And then literally some witness comes forward and says, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing him walk out of the house." It's literally based on that person's memory. The person on trial's fate. He would, what if that person who witnessed the person in the house had been listening to this trial or something like that? So they're like, oh, I did see something, or just like make up shit in their head. Like people all the time, when something big happens, they want to be a part of it. They want to be like, oh yeah, I saw that. It's like, did you really see it? Or are you just saying you saw it because you were nearby? You're implanting a memory in your head.
Kids do that a lot.
Yeah.
Like when you asked me if you've seen this movie. I remember my niece, like Incredibles 2 came out. And my niece is like, oh, we've been watching Incredibles 2 lately. I'm like, you've been watching Incredibles 2? Like your school teacher takes you to the movie theater to see it. And she goes, yeah. I was like, okay, what's the plot? And then eventually like, Kelsey, why are you just like, making this up? And then in her head, it was Incredibles 2. But what I found out was it was Incredibles 1. So in her mind, she thought that she was seeing the second movie, but she was actually seeing the first movie. Because as the movie was coming out, I guess maybe her teacher, when they were showing it, was saying, we're watching The Incredibles and the movie's out in theaters. So she was just thinking in her head. So technically, she really wasn't lying. It's just she wasn't getting the correct information out.
Yeah, that's a very like tough thing. Trust, I guess, is the thing. Do you trust someone enough to trust their memory?
Certain people, like there's certain people like you can kind of tell. That's why they do those weird eye tests. Like, what does up to the left mean? What does up to the right mean? What does down?
Yeah.
What is shifting your eyes?
But how much validity does that actually have?
From like CIA interrogators, they say it's a lot.
Yeah.
They say it's like fairly accurate on how people lie. Hesitations and things like that.
I feel like that could have been true back in the day, but I feel like now that people are aware of that, if they're in that situation, they're just gonna fucking googly eye or wear sunglasses or some shit,
Yeah,
they should have never talked about that sort of thing.
Well, what I always think when they talk about stuff like that is that's old news and they found something else. So like
That-
they're actually,
yeah.
so they're using something else and like, oh, we'll just say the eye thing now.
Right.
Even though like maybe the way that their hands move or like their mouth twitches, that's like the new way. Instead of
Yeah.
just like here's our old way, but we're saying this is actually what we do.
Yeah. It's easier just not to lie.
Well, yeah. When I grew up, that if you just tell the truth, no matter how bad it is right now, you won't have to deal with it in the future.
Right.
And that's kind of how I've always approached time.
And the guilt.
Well, yeah. Well, some people just are. They just don't have any guilt at all for what they did. It's just they don't want to get in trouble. They want to spare themselves from being in trouble. But then later on, that lie catches up. I don't know if you ever watched. It's a YouTube show by Funny or Die, and it's called Zach Morrison is Trash, or Zach Morris is Trash. And it's basically Saved by the Bell, showing how Zach Morris is actually just a piece of trash. And there's an episode where like they said like how Zach Morris just lied basically about getting a car accident because he was intoxicated at a party. And so the whole episode was just him basically lying for this car, and he finally came out. But like the entire time, he was just making all of his friends' lives miserable based on this lie, you know. But yeah, I think that you're right to tell the truth. But there's certain things like white lies, that are okay. They always say so. Like if you know what music sounds like, right? And then let's say a niece or nephew comes to you, and they're like, "Hey, Andrew, check out this song I'm playing. Is it good?" And you're like, "That's fucking awful." But you can't tell them that.
Right.
And so you lie like, "That's really good."
Right.
But then you tell yourself, well, for, let's say an 8-year-old, that's actually pretty good. They always say, oh, for this, that's
Right.
actually pretty good.
Right.
But in your head, you're just like, no, that's actually really, really bad.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't tell Mercedes eventually I'll eat Wendy's and I'm not supposed to. Well, by my own thing, she won't get mad at me.
I remember you telling me about the Wendy's thing.
Yeah.
You're thinking about Wendy's because of the cup and everything.
Yeah. But so like I'll eat Wendy's and I'll be like, I'm not going to tell her,
She'll know now, though.
It doesn't matter why, or it doesn't matter in the long run. But I felt so guilty about not telling her about Wendy's that I was like, I have something to tell you. And she's like, what? And I was like, I had Wendy's today for lunch. Because I can't, like, the feeling of not having any, like, falsities or anything like that, it's so liberating to not have, like, the burden of guilt on your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like when you start building up things like little lies and they start to add up, it starts to affect your memory.
It's like, what is that poem, dude? I can't remember the name of the poem. Or who was even the writer of it. But it's like where that guy kills that one person and puts him in his floorboards and all you can hear is his heart beating.
Oh,
What
I
is the
don't
name of
know.
that poem?
I have no idea. Sounds cool, though.
Who's that like real dark?
Edgar Allan Poe?
It was an Edgar Allan Poe poem. Maybe it's no.
No, not the Raven.
No,
Or maybe, I don't know.
No, the Raven, because I remember Raven ending the Raven Nevermore or something. Maybe I
Yeah,
don't,
quote the Raven nevermore.
Yeah, but it's like he kills somebody and puts them in his floorboards, and you can just hear. If anybody's listening and you know it, just let us know. But it's kind of like that. So like it just eats at you and eats at you and eats at you. Like I forget who it was. Maybe it was Bernie Madoff, and doing that huge Ponzi scheme. And then they asked him when he's in jail, "How do you like this life now after your life of basically just ripping people off?" And
Right.
he goes, "I can finally sleep."
Yeah.
Because for the past 20 to 30 years, he's just been switching money here and there, waiting and worrying about the day that he's going to get caught. And it's finally done and over with, that he doesn't have to deal with that shit anymore.
Right.
No matter the lifestyle that he was living, spending all the money and everything, he's just finally like, I don't have to keep up with this lie anymore.
Well, and like your memory. Because we're talking about memory, but it just affects your memory because like once you start doing that, your memory starts to become gray.
Who did I lie to?
Yeah, who did I lie
What
to?
story did I say that?
Yeah, exactly. And then you're just not living a fucking real life.
Have you ever had those people that will just make shit up for no reason? I don't mean like pathological liars. I just mean because they just don't give a fuck about actually. So it's like, let's say for example, you have like a Band-Aid on your face, and one person, let's say like I come up, and then I was like, oh, what happened to your face? You get that you get a Band-Aid on it, and they'll say, oh, I bumped my head when I was getting out of my car, and it kind of like left a gash and everything. And then they're just walking up, and like you're walking now with them, and somebody else is like, whoa, what happened to your head? Why you had that Band-Aid? He's like, oh, I was actually cooking food, and just like they're just saying just different stories every single time.
They just lie. I don't even think at that point it's just it's lying. It's just they're kind of just trying to spruce up
or just like troll everyone.
Yeah, I mean I do enjoy a good troll.
Yeah. I enjoy trolling to a degree, but just like making up stuff, I don't really care.
Katie Holiday just said, I just had to call Alan, confirm, is that Barry freaking Lincoln? Hashtag Seville.
Yeah.
That's funny because you just texted Al today.
Yeah.
When did his album come out?
I don't know when it came out. When I was back at home, I saw that my friend had it. I'm like, oh, when did this album come out?
Is it on vinyl?
I don't know. Usually he comes out with his vinyl stuff a few weeks or a month or so after, because it's a different process, as you know, to like press it than it is to make
I love
a
his
CD.
music.
It's so good. There's a song that he's got that I had this idea for this movie, that there's a song that he has on his first record called Made It Through the Milligan, and it's called The Duck. And that song, there's no lyrics in it at all, but I remember listening to the song and like texting like, dude, this is it. I'm gonna use that song if he gives you permission to use it ever, if I ever make a movie.
I played a festival with him a year or two ago, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was like, damn, like, I love that style of music.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like nobody around, I think, where I'm from, plays that sort of music.
Yeah, it's good. So, what were we talking about before that?
Just like people who just make shit up.
Oh yeah. So like people, I don't understand sometimes. I knew this person once who would lie about things as far as you would listen. Like they would be like, they're a habitual one-upper, right?
Those are the worst, man.
So this girl would just, you'd be like talking about, we opened for this band, and she would be like, oh, this one time I was at this place hanging out with that band, and I went back with this guy and we did this and that, and just like she's just bullshitting the story as she's talking, just building this like monumental fucking lie. And then I'm just like, when I walk away, I'm like, there's no fucking way that's true. But now in her mind, she just created that. So now it is a real memory in her mind, you know?
Yeah.
And imagine if like memories do have some sort of like, substance to them. Like if it's an electrical pulse that can be picked up somewhere else, you know? Like, like thoughts. So like manifestation of thoughts, right? So you want to be a comic book illustrator. You wake up every morning, tell yourself you're going to be I am. You do the sigil magic. You use the secret. You do all this stuff. You're putting that energy into the universe. Well, I think that memories do the same thing, and they can be, you know, floating around and shit. What if someone else picks up on that bullshit that that a person made up, you know? Maybe that's what like fucks with people's heads.
Is like living some part of their life based on somebody else's lie.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if every memory or every thought you have is actually put out there, you know, just however many you put out there, or how big it is, but then someone else accidentally gets picked up on it, and then they're part of your lie or some shit.
That'd be weird.
Or it affects your life.
Yeah, I think about memory often, about how malleable it really is and how you can't really get back. Even like, how many times have you been in this room, for an example, and then take everything in and then go downstairs and then write everything that's in this room? They always say like
I could probably get close.
There's this, I think it's in psychology, where I was in my psychology class, and then they would give you a list of stuff, a grocery list, and in the grocery list it was like 5 items, and then he spit it off real quick, the professor, and then you're supposed to write them down, and then he gave you a different list, and so on and so forth, and then he said compile these lists together and then like figure out what you missed. So it wasn't like, I'm going to tell you these things, you write them down. He's like, okay, here's list 1, here's list 2, here's list 3, and then you write down what's in each list, but you won't remember certain things. Maybe he said, okay, on the first list is apples, bananas, cherries, bread, and eggs. And so you write down stuff, and then you come back, and oranges was on the list. Like, why did you write oranges down? I never said oranges. Like, oh, the reason why I wrote down oranges is because you're making a list of like fruits, that type of thing.
Right.
And they just misremembered it completely.
Right.
So that's what I was saying. Like, if you write down all this stuff that you think is in your room, you'll probably add shit and subtract shit that aren't here.
Yeah, and I think that's where kind of like mnemonic devices come in. You know, like every good boy does fine What is that?
What is that one?
I think that's the treble clef, stuff like that. Because you're
Every good boy does fine.
yeah.
I don't understand why they make that shit up when you could just say like on a guitar it's EADGBE.
Yeah, but it's because it's easier. I think it's called like chunking. You're chunking bits of information
I always
within
hated
mnemonic
Hated that
devices.
in school. I can
Yeah.
never remember that. Like what did they say about the solar system one? It's like Mercury, and then
Oh, my very good grandma eats nachos or some shit like
I
that.
was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why don't you just tell me the name of how they go in order, and then I'll remember them?
yeah,
that way?
I guess it's easier. What I think is funny though is, well, this is actually true though. Like if you think about a birthday, right? So let's say you have to remember an 8-digit number, and that number is 19871989. Can you repeat that back to me?
19871819.
Right, but it took you. It's like hard to remember it like that. But if I tell you, 1987, 1989, that's easier because you're breaking it down. So that's like chunking. You're taking bits of information.
Some part of me and like trying to understand human behavior is thinking, why did you pick those 2 years? Like, why were those 2 years, drawn out of your head?
Me?
Yeah, those two numbers. Why were those numbers drawn? Like,
Because that's my birth year and Mercedes'
oh yeah,
birth year.
I know that, but I'm just saying, like, like when other people say stuff like that, why do you?
Right, why do you pick those numbers?
Yeah, why do you
because
pick the
they
numbers?
weren't random.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to use those numbers so
Well,
that
yeah, I know what you mean.
I
is
could remember them.
That's why. Yeah, that's why on credit cards, they will separate it out by chunks of 4 until you get like an American Express.
Yeah, and they have to be different.
Yeah, and it's like 7 numbers here, 1 there, 14 on this. Like, what the fuck is this?
Stick to the 4-digit thing.
Yeah, but that's us just being used to that sort of thing, which is kind of true because when I look at numbers like a stream of things, I try to remember them in 2. So like 49, 48, 67, like that sort of thing, because it's way easier to remember than the whole number altogether.
Right. Yeah, memory is weird. That movie that I watched yesterday, Inland Empire, it really fucked with my head, and I think that the purpose of the movie is memory, or that's part of it, but it's digging into your psyche and distinguishing what's real and what's not real, because I think that if you're not careful, you could get really caught up between, if you have like vivid dreams, you can get caught up in, I'm sure there's people that have super crazy dreams, and that might be crazy people because they can't distinguish between actual reality and their dreams or what the shit that's going on in their head.
Have you ever seen a movie? It's like a French-American movie called The Science of Sleep. That's what's going on with that guy. Is like his dreams are kind of interlapping with his reality, and then he sees himself. It's really weird because he sees himself. He hears something happening on his front door, so he looks through like a little hole in it, and then he sees himself leave a note, and we see somebody leave a note that's naked, and then later on in the movie, he's naked leaving himself a note about like dreams and what's going on, what's not going on. But talking about like the whole idea of kind of living in like a delusional world based on memories is, I think, a really good movie to showcase that is American Psycho.
Oh,
that movie is like spot on to like how fantasy can kind of create.
Right, because in the end he's like freaking out. He's like, I killed someone in the lobby. I killed Alan.
Is he in the phone booth?
Yeah, and he's like, and then he calls him back. He's like, oh man, that message was funny. And he's like, I was with Alan last night or whatever, Yeah. And I think that, and I'm not sure like the context or the scientific or biological facts that can cause a person to do that, but I've definitely been in situations where like my mind will start to run, and like I think we were talking about last week, that movie I was talking about, The Chum Scrubber, and I had to pause and like, and especially yesterday when I was watching Inland Empire and that Jim thing happened, and then that other thing where I got confused about if it was my dream or whatever. But that kind of shit happens, but people who maybe aren't mentally strong, that's when they start to lose it.
Yeah, I was in that book that I was reading, The Brain, the Story of You. They were saying one way to kind of help keep your mind, it's kind of like when you get older, your body goes to shit because you're not working it out. So you work out your body to have more longevity. It's the same thing with your brain. It is like, talk about philosophy, read books that stimulate your mind, things like that. So you're not like sitting there and, kind of losing your mind to a degree of like misremembering things. But I think also, isn't there like a number of how many things can be in your head for like people's names and people?
What do you mean?
I think there's a name for it, is where you can only have up to maybe like 180 people in your head at any given time. And then,
Like their names?
like names and faces. So like, for an example, like if I come up to you, you immediately know my name and you immediately know my face, right?
Right.
But somebody from your past, you're like, man, I remember that face, but what is your name? And then they say your name, like, oh, that's right, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the name, but I don't remember the face.
Yeah.
Because you can only remember a certain amount of people.
I could see that being true.
Plus, like with today, you have tons of celebrities that are just like occupying your brain space too.
Yeah. But I don't, but what's weird to me though is like there's people like my grandpa. I'm pretty sure he probably has like 150 songs, all the lyrics in his head. Like how how do people do that?
So that's really weird. So think of how many songs, right? We'll just say the Grateful Dead, for an example. Not recorded music, but each individual song. How many songs do you think they have?
I have a shirt that says it on the back.
Okay, so they have, let's just keep
like 1,000.
Okay, so they have 1,000 songs, right? How is it possible to remember every single lyric and how the progression of that song goes? And then that's just one band, right? Now let's just say you have 5 of your favorite bands that collectively they have 100 songs. And you can remember them like specifically.
Yeah.
Like everything about them. Where does that go? And I've been really thinking about memory in the sense of, I think it's just stored somewhere else. And then it's kind of like a guy that like, back room. And he opens up the back room and he's like, clicks his flashlight and like blowing dust to get out these boxes and shit to find like, yep, here it is. And he dusts it off. And then all of a sudden, like 3 days later, he's like, all right, I got the memory. And you're like, damn, dude, I need that memory 3 days ago.
Right. Yeah. I think that sort of thing is like what we were talking about earlier, the left inferior frontal gyrus, which is conceptual. So those are like concepts.
Yeah.
Right. A song is a concept.
That's the weirdest thing about a song is it can only be experienced in time, which is like, okay, yeah, we get it. Everything can only be experienced in time. No, like when you read a book, right, you see the entirety of the page. You see all the words, right? You can't see the entire book,
Right.
But you see the page of all
But
the
you
words.
have the beginning and the end. You can hold it. You can see it.
Yeah, right? Same thing for like a movie. You can take all the pieces of film, lay them out, and see the entire movie all at once. You cannot do that with a song. The only way to experience a song is to piece every single second of it inside your brain to have this weird flowing motion of the song in your head.
Yeah, but that's like that coincides with like senses, because that's sound is auditory,
Yeah.
where vision you can see the beginning and the end.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, like, you really can't. Well, I don't know, but like
I see what you're saying though. That does make sense. It is a true
thing of happening in memory simultaneously as happening in present.
Yeah, of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's funny that certain people can remember tons of. I mean, think of like orchestral musicians that can remember hundreds of pieces of like very complex music.
Yeah. That blows my mind when somebody can just perform like on any sort of classical instrument and they remember it, every little thing, like when their hand should move, like if they're using a bow, for example, how to like, pull the bow. Is it more than just memory in your head, or is it your hands being able to remember certain things? Like, weird thing is, when I used to serve last time, all the glasses were up at top, right? And then I didn't serve for like 3 years. And then I went back to serving, and then my mind or my body instantly, when I was looking to make a drink, went straight up.
I had things like that happen when I went from like one restaurant or like one specific location to another specific location. There would be things that I was used to having like right there, and they weren't there.
Yeah, it's like, I think that it's more so than like a memory. Where I'm trying to get it with that in the whole music thing with like, playing any sort of classical instrument is the memories that you have, like, oh yeah, it was this day, this time, this is the weather, and so on and so forth, as compared to having everything memorized in your head to play. But I think to some degree, this is one thing that like I never understood about playing music, is I've always been a memorizer. on music. I don't understand how somebody can have sheet music out in front of them,
Yeah.
and then just like the little dot when you're a kid singing the song along with you is like they're going along with the sheet music and just playing it in real time as they're reading it and just playing it, that sort of thing. I don't get that at all. Like, to me, because like I have to remember everything about the song.
Well, that's just like practice. You have to practice to be able to read the music.
Yeah.
Because it's literally the exact same thing as a chord chart. You can read a chord chart with like words, and if you know the general tempo, it's the same thing. It's like G, C. You're just moving along. It's just notating it in a different way. Like, you'll memorize each note on the thing, and if they're stacked, it's a chord. You'll know what chord it is.
Yeah.
It's just like one of those things.
I guess so, because it's kind of like when you're drawing a face, for an example, like if somebody doesn't have any sort of technical skills on how to draw a face, they try to draw the face as they see the face, rather than somebody that has technical skills. What they see is triangles, squares, and circles, and so they're just piecing all of it together as in a thing. You're like, yeah, that's a face, but how they're seeing the face is differently than
Right. It's how you're trained to see the
yeah,
face.
yeah. So I get like you can train yourself to do that,
Yeah.
but it's just like kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, like if you're trained to see if you're trained well enough and you can just see a song on paper and immediately know how to play it, that's one thing. But there's also people that can hear a song one time and play the whole damn thing.
Yeah, one day I was sitting on my friend's couch and his guitar was like close by me, and then I just walked over, grabbed the guitar, and I forget what song it was. It was a Smashing Pumpkins song that just like instantly hit my head. Like, I know how to play this thing. I never learned the song before ever. I just went over the guitar, grabbed it, and was like, this is this song.
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes
It's
too.
so bizarre.
Yeah. I'll try to like figure out a song line, like a lead or something. I won't know what key the song is or anything, and I'll sit down and I'll just play it, and I'll be like, how did I do that? But I think it's just because your memory knows how certain sounds are, so you're relating that sound to a sound that you already know, and you're like, well, it sounds kind of like this, so I'm gonna play what I think it is, and and they match up. It's the more in tune you are with your ear and your mind and your memory and that sort of thing is how you're able to do it. I mean, there's literally guitarists that could I know this guitarist, I don't know him personally, I've met him before. He plays in this band called Marbin. They're like a gypsy jazz fusion band, but he can literally he's a fucking guitar virtuoso. He could hear like a solo or something and literally play it verbatim, just hearing it one time.
Those are like freaks in nature, though.
Yeah, like think about like solos, like a lot of Pink Floyd solos, like they're very long and they're very articulate and they're very precise on their things. There's people that can hear it one time and literally play Great Gig in the Sky, the vocal melody, they can play that on guitar.
That's so cool. I think
but it's just about knowing your instrument.
Yeah,
knowing
that's what I was gonna say. That's what I
every
think it's about,
note.
yeah.
It's just about knowing the sound and that sort of thing.
Yeah, what happens is, because people always say, like, well, I've been drawing for, 15 years, but I'm just not good at it. Like, you don't look at it in duration like that. You look at how many hours have you spent doing it.
Right.
And these people who can, hear Greg in the Sky and play it on pianos forward and backward is because they have mastered time and time again the piano.
Right.
So they just get it. And what we're talking about on Sunday morning when we did the podcast that's kind of like another thing that I wanted to kind of mention. It's not really about memory or anything like that, but just kind of like a throwback to the last week's or Sunday's episode. Is that's one thing I try to remind myself. Is I remember being a kid, picking up the guitar and thinking, okay, because when you're a kid you have more patience than when you're an older. I think for learning new things.
Right.
Is okay, so I'm going to learn this new thing, and I kind of apply this to different things in my life. And so I'm gonna play this guitar, and one thing that I want to know is I don't care at all about learning songs by musicians. What I care about is how to build chords, the scales of the chords, and how to progress that scale throughout the neck. That's all I wanted to learn, because I think if I can learn that, then I can just learn everything else, simultaneously trying to learn ear training. And I eventually was able to do that with the scales. I can just move the scales everywhere, like, from Lydian, Mixolydian, Phrygian, all that, right? And it took me years to do that. But when I'm like drawing stuff, I'm like, damn, I don't know how to do this, like this foot at this sort of angle. And I get frustrated at it. And I'm like, okay, well, eventually you'll master that and move on. Because remember I was talking to you about weaknesses. Why would
Right.
you want your weakness to just still be a weakness? It's kind of like that. So I just kind of remind myself that at one point in time, you're okay with being really bad at guitar because you knew that, you know, you have to be bad in order to start somewhere.
Right.
And it's kind of like what you're saying is these people that can hear any sort of song, no matter what instrument it's on, and then the instrument that they have mastered, they can just play it based on the memories that they have of how to perform front and back this instrument.
Right.
Which
right.
is crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, it's like for me, sounds like producing music, if I hear a certain snare or a certain kick or an arrangement of a certain piece, I can be like, oh, I know exactly what they did. And I can literally get on the computer, find a similar kick, find a similar snare, find a similar sound, recreate that sound and do that. But that's just because I've been doing it forever. But
Yeah.
I could not fucking do that on guitar. I've tried to do the Great Gig in I can hum the Great Gig in the Sky vocal thing. You know that? Like I could hum it verbatim on like the song, obviously not in key.
Yeah.
But for the life of me, I cannot. I can get like the first like 10 seconds on guitar, but it like takes a minute because I'm not fully developed that much to know the movement. But I've seen a guy fucking play it before verbatim on the guitar off the cuff.
Yeah, that sounds so cool to me.
Yeah, when we were on one of my old bands was on tour in Colorado. I was like, damn, how long did it take you to learn that? He's like, I didn't really learn it. It's in my head and I know how to. I mean, he was like a trained jazz guitarist, but he just, and obviously it wasn't 100% perfect. There were pieces that were inflected on, and you know, but I mean, it was.
That's how Jimi Hendrix played.
Yeah.
He just like if it did. Jimi Hendrix, he always says he's a blues musician, but to some degree, if you take the aspect of jazz, there's no such thing as a wrong note in jazz. It's just how you use that note to your advantage. That's what Jimi Hendrix did. Constantly.
Well, yeah. If he hit a wrong note, he would either know to bend it up or bend it down so that it would wind.
Get it where he wanted to. Go,
wind up so it would be in tune.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at that actually. Like if I'm not looking down at the guitar and I'm playing and I hear a wrong note, I'll be like, I know how to jump to get to the right note, the flub note. I hate the flub note though.
Going back to David Gilmour I think he's so vastly underrated. By the way, I think
I think he's appropriately rated.
I think, in my personal opinion, he is hands down the best guitar player
of all time.
Of all time, yeah.
I would disagree with that.
The only reason is because like maybe he doesn't know the instrument, as other musicians know their instrument. But the reason why I think he's the best is because whatever he is feeling internally, he can transcribe that into his guitar every single time. If he's like feeling jittery, his solos and song progressions will be jittery. And then the same thing for like if he's feeling super down, you can feel that in the guitar. And then I just feel like, for an example, they always say Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page are the top two guitar players of all time. They just know the instrument, but I don't really get the sense of feeling.
Jimi Hendrix feels.
See, I think this is just me, and I might get a lot of shit for this. I think he's one of the most sloppy or the sloppiest guitar player.
Well, yeah, he's sloppy, but he was playing what he felt.
But I don't. To me, it was what he felt rather than the emotion in the guitar. That's what I mean with David Gilmour. Is like you can feel the emotion in it.
Yeah.
So you might feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play this note and play this because this is what it feels right. It's just, I don't know. I will listen to Jimi Hendrix, and this is not me at all discrediting his level of talent at all. It's just me saying that I just don't personally think he is the end all be all for music, for guitar. And then like with the Jimmy Page thing, like don't get me wrong, Jimmy Page can play folk songs to like hard rock songs, right, and everything in between that. But I just think that like his was just playing. Like when you look at art and somebody's like, okay, yeah, they're really good at just drawing, but there's like nothing really there to connect you to it.
I see what you're saying.
That's how I love Zeppelin and everything, but I just don't feel like he, to me, is like when I listen to any sort of if I listen to Communication Breakdown Live, that's 23 minutes long, and it's like, nah, I'm fucking done. I just can't listen to him just like improvise. But when David Gilmour improvises stuff, it's like, oh, I can just listen to that constantly.
Yeah, I can get that. Stevie Ray Vaughan was like that.
Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan's another one. There's some other ones that I just think is like, it's okay. So Tom Marlaro, I think he's vastly underrated too.
Well, and I was just about to say, there's a couple different camps when you're talking about best guitarist, because there's like the soul, who plays from the soul. There's technical, who's technical as
Yeah.
fuck, who's refined, who's
Experimental.
exactly that sort of thing. Which Tom Morello is experimental, David Gilmour is soul, Frank Zappa is technical,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
I would agree. Yeah, I don't know why I went on that tangent. I was just like,
I mean, have you like listened to Frank Zappa in depth,
no, not really.
like ripping guitar?
Not like I've heard of like
Yeah.
the songs and stuff, but I don't. It wasn't one when I was learning guitar to dive into that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I mean, he is like,
probably because I was never technical.
yeah, he's he's so full. He is like perfect ear. I mean, he wrote like concertos for like 3 fucking orchestras all mixed together. He wrote all this crazy orchestral music, chamber music. Like, he heard music, and he never introduced alcohol or drugs into his thing. So it was always
That's pretty cool. When I was younger, I wanted to look like Frank Zappa.
really.
Yeah, I wanted.
What's
like-
actually funny today, him and his daughter Moon Unit got some award or some big thing happened on this day in like 75 for one of their songs, Valley Girl. They won some award or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought he looked so cool with like that giant mustache.
Yeah,
Like
I
the
was
soul
him
patch.
for Halloween many years in a row.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so cool looking. To
Yeah.
me, he kind of reminds me of Serge Tankian.
Oh yeah.
Like he kind of looks like that.
Yeah. Well, he's got a song Ahmet, Moon Unit, and Dweezil. I'm not sure of. I'm not sure of like his. He might have that kind of Middle Eastern-y
Well,
background in
well,
that.
I don't remember exactly. They're Armenian. That's what they are.
Armenian, yeah.
Yeah.
That Frank Zappa could have a little bit of that, or he couldn't. I don't know. I don't remember. But
Why don't you remember? Because the information wasn't stored in your head and you can't recollect it.
yeah,
Just trying to tie it back to memory and shit.
I read 2 of his books, 2 books about him. But dude, he was a blaster on guitar. He just like there was no sort of disconnect between his mind, his soul, and his fingers. Like there was no translation that needed to be had in order to get his thought or his soul into his fingers, which I think is like important for musicians, because a lot of times in a music, like for me when I'm playing, I think, okay, I need to play the right notes. I need to be in this key. I need to be in this scale. So there's kind of there's a delay between getting the thought out from the brain to the soul to the fingers, where I think the best guitarists, it's just fluid. Like Jerry Garcia, there was no sort of translation. There was no sort of barrier. It was literally just from the soul, the mind, into the guitar. And Frank Zappa was the best about it, because, I mean, he was just like, he could play so fast, so many notes, so many tasteful, full notes, but there not be a delay, whereas Jerry Garcia is a little slower music.
Yeah, I think with Jerry Garcia, for me, is whenever I listen to like their stuff, I just think like, I feel like you're just there as an entity, right? And the source where you're pulling the stuff from is using it as its catalyst.
Right.
And that's how I always felt like he played.
Because
it
it's
just seemed-
perfect. It's perfect.
It just seemed effortless.
Yeah.
Just like improvising. Just playing.
And like, and the way he built it, and like the jams and stuff, like whatever jam it is, he brings it in and you're feeling, oh cool, we're in a jam, and he can build you up effortlessly into like when they release the jam, you know, when it peaks or whatever, you want to cry, and you're so happy because whatever was going on with his fingers and however he was speaking to you, whatever that was pure love, and he was communicating love to you, just throwing it at you with his music.
yeah.
But I think that for music, I mean, for me, I lack something in I think the world of like the soul. I don't think that either I have tapped into how I can communicate my full 100% vision of guitar playing and music through guitar. But B, it's also, I don't know if I'll ever be able to. I can be technical. I know all the scales. I know every scale and every key. I know pretty much all the necessary chords and that sort of thing. But there's some piece that I'm missing that, you know, all guitarists hope that they get all. I think there's like 3 pieces. There's the technical, the soul, and the mind, right? Like even
Whatever's in your mind, you'll be able to play because you have the technical skills and
Right.
you can feel it through it.
right, like for like
I would agree.
I love Kirk Hammett, but I think that he's playing through technicalities, right? He's just playing technical. And there's people like mathy people that are like they know the scales and stuff, and they know what should be played, so they're just playing, like super fast sweep arpeggio people. It's like, okay, cool, you have the technical stuff down, but is that really coming from your soul?
Yeah, the same way that you feel about that is the same way I feel about illustration. It's just some like books that I'll get, like comics, and I'll open up, and, like they're just extremely technical,
Yeah.
but it just lacks that sort of like feeling to it.
Right.
And then there's an artist and writer. His name's Jeff Lemire, and his stuff that he draws, if you just look at it, you're like, that is shit. Like his art looks like shit, right? But it's not,
Right.
because like he lacks the technical skills of like anatomy and perspective, but the feeling of what he's
Right.
trying to get across in the art is like, once you start looking at it, a lot of people are like, nah, I'm not reading any of his shit. It looks like shit. But once you get past that, you're like, oh, okay, I can see where like the feeling to it is, that sort of thing. So I think those three things that you're saying is like the technical, the soul, and the mind is, or the emotion, can be applied to any sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because if you're like super technical, you may lack, vision in your head to perform it in a certain way where you're just like, yeah, I can just perform this.
Right.
Where in your mind, you're just playing, and you're just daydreaming, or whatever
Yeah.
it may possibly be. But
Well, like for like blues guitarists, like, do you know who Joe Bonamassa is?
no.
Super brilliant blues guitarist. But when I watch him, I'm watching a technically a technically sound person that's playing the blues as they were taught and as they know how to play it. And their songs are very bluesy. When I watch John Mayer, he's playing from his soul when he does his blues stuff.
Yeah.
Or Robert Cray or Eric Clapton. They're not as flashy, but you feel it from their soul. And I think that's... And, Joe Bonamassa is a phenomenal guitarist. But, like, when I watch him, I'm like, man... You seem like you grew up in a, whatever nice family and stuff, so you really don't, know how to play the blues. But someone like B.B. King or something, like, they are playing the blues.
Yeah.
If that's kind of, and like you said, that holds true to everything. And that's what I struggle with music with a lot, is like, I think that my soul's there, like I have the soul and emotion for it, but I'm more technical than that, if that makes sense. Like, I have ideas all the time. I just can't get them out because there's some sort of missing branch in between the two things. And I think a lot of, which I don't think is wrong. I think that anyone that's doing something creative can still make it on that level. Yeah. But I think the real gems are the people that have it all, like Jerry Garcia or...
You like Frank
Zappa, or even early Trey Anastasio from Fish, people like that. Like, dude, an all-around person like that, it would be Jim James from My Morning Jacket. That motherfucker can play every instrument, can sing like an angel, and literally takes what he wants to do and put it into not just an instrument but a full song. You know what I mean?
That's how I always felt about Dave Grohl. I always loved Dave Grohl.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think that's another... I think that he would be a person that lacks a little more on the tech... I think that he might run into, like, technical problems.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched that...
Sound City?
No, what was it? The 18 or 23-minute song?
Oh, I don't know that.
He had a 23-minute song called Play, and he was talking about it. And he was saying that, like... Because what he wanted to do is just hit record, and then every instrument, if he fucked up, he would have to go back and redo it. And he's like, he would always say, sorry guys, when he's playing the piano. He's like, I don't know how to fucking play piano, because he's trying to feel it out rather than just like knowing how to technically play the piano. But he's like, this song needs a piano. I'm going to put a piano in there, and I'm going to try my best to do it, like that sort of thing.
Right.
Which sometimes, like, I think if you are too into what you're doing like that, let's say you know too much about being technical, that you're missing out on
the soul, the emotion,
something in there, right? And if you have too much soul in there, you might be missing the technical abilities to actually get out what your soul is saying.
Yeah, it's like it's got to be a combination of like building your color palette. Like the color palette is kind of like red, blue, green. How many colors you have is like the technical aspect, but your ability to blend the colors is like the emotion. Yeah. But then the soul is actually getting what is in your mind onto the canvas.
And getting that feeling that, like, it's like whenever you open a comic, right? And then you see somebody's like, oh, they're good at drawing a face screaming. And then you see somebody else that can draw a face screaming. Like, that is it. Like, on the wall, that face. Like, you could feel that emotion
Right.
in that drawing,
Right.
rather than if somebody else maybe drew it, or like Ralph Steadman. Like the crazy sort of like feeling that he gets with his stuff. That is like straight emotion through it.
Yeah, when you look at his stuff, you can tell like he's not the best colorer, but getting that emotion out onto paper. I mean, the Fear and Loathing artwork, you look at that and you're like, oh yeah, looks like Hunter Thompson to me. You captured it in no other perfect way than how it can be
Yeah.
captured.
Yeah.
Same with Johnny Depp acting as Hunter S. Thompson. He nailed it because he got to hang out. He got to hang out with him.
Yeah. Didn't he like follow him around for a few months?
Oh yeah,
doing
they
his
became
manners and
friends.
stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a scene in that movie. I love Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and there's a scene in this movie where he goes to the bathroom because he's just like he's gonna snort some coke off some guy's sleeve,
Oh yeah.
and then he turns around and it's the real Hunter Thompson like on his like keyboard or something with like his green hat, and he goes, "Holy shit, is that me?" And
Wait,
then
is
he
it-
just
Is that for real?
yeah, he's in the, and that's
I
one of
never
my
realized that.
that's one of my favorite parts. He's like sniffing off his.
I know what part you're talking about.
Yeah, and then
He's he's got the green like cashier hat on.
yeah, and he's doing, and then like he looks over and goes, "Holy shit," or he may say "Holy shit" or "Holy fuck," but he's like, "Is that me?"
Oh my god, I've
And
never.
then it's only like 5 seconds, and he moves on, and it was actually him in there.
Yeah, who let these monsters in here?
Yeah.
With the lizard part.
Yeah, where he's like walking around in the muck and his
Yeah.
feet are going up.
But how do you think? Do you think that it's possible for someone who's lacking one of those three elements that we talked about? Do you think it's possible for someone to build upon the one they're lacking,
Yeah,
or do you think it's like you either have to be born with it?
No, I think you can. I think 2 out of 3. I always say that you have to have 3 things to succeed in being in the creative arts. One of them is be on time with everything that you have, like meet deadlines. The second thing is being really good. And the third thing is having a great personality. You only need 2 of the 3. And I feel like you really only need 2 of the 3. Because if you only know technical, but you know, like, the soul's not there and the mind's not there to come up with stuff, you're not going to make it because you're not coming up with shit and you're not feeling for it. But if you have the mind and the soul, where like, yeah, maybe you lack the technical skills to get out exactly what's in your head, you'll still be able to have it. Or if you have the soul and the technical skills, we're just like, you can put feeling behind it, and you're like maybe a studio session guitar player, and you have that feeling, and you can captivate people with it. And then like, I think you just need 2 or 3. But of course, like with anything, like we were talking about last podcast, was anything that you have that is a weakness, do not settle as that is your weakness. If you know that you're lacking in, like what we said, make that your priority to make that not your weakness.
Right. Yeah, you just kind of made me think of something, because I guess like if I let's say I couldn't play the drums, but I had a song I was working on that needed drums, I could find a drummer and express this is what I want. I'm looking for this kind of feel, and then I'll be able to hear it once it happens, but I just can't produce it.
Yeah, it's kind of like why does Dave Grohl have a drummer in Foo Fighters?
Well, because he wanted to play guitar and sing.
Well, he could just make all the records, right, himself, and then kind of like what Tame Impala does, just make it all himself.
Well, he didn't want to. He
And
didn't
then-
want to play drums.
I know what I'm saying. He wanted to find a drummer,
That was better than him.
yeah, so we can, not worry about that aspect of it.
Right.
So that's kind of like what you were saying. That's what like sparked my mind is just because you can kind of do it, like, right? Okay, I can color. I can do it if I wanted to, but I don't want to color.
Right.
I want to find somebody that is their passion for it, is the color. Is like maybe he wanted somebody, or you need somebody that like you're not going to be able to provide what this piece of art needs. So you seek it out to have that other person's input, so that you can have a better vision of what it could be, right?
Right.
Because sometimes if you're doing things all by yourself, you can kind of get locked into this thing of how it has to be,
Right.
rather than, somebody else just broadening your view on what this piece
Well,
could
that's why I
be.
always say collaboration is key,
Yeah, but sometimes
especially in music.
sometimes collaboration can be, you've seen bands come and go constantly. We're like, well, I have an idea and Pink Floyd fell victim to that too. I have a direction for where the band should go. And then everybody else is like, no, we don't want that at all. And you just kind of like lose the vision of what you originally had,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, but I think collaboration is key in certain aspects, but in other aspects, like for me, if I'm making a song and I know exactly how I want that song to sound, I'm like, I'm going to finish the song, and then I'll ask for someone's input, for critiques, for tweaking. But if I have like a melody and a rhythm, but I don't have anything else, then I'm just like, well, shit, I need someone else's input. I'm stuck on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of am a little bit with stories and stuff. Is I have the entire story in my head, and then I don't really need somebody else to like give me direction or things like that. But if I have an idea and it's just really loosely based, I'll ask other people for like hey, where would you like to see this
Right.
thing, or like just like kind of like hey, I'm thinking about this ending or this sort of thing, to get a feel of what people might like, you know.
Right, and I think that's important to do that because it's and we've talked about this before, but especially this day and age when everything is so there's so much content that you're in order to have your content be the best, you have to have an outside source, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um yeah, I don't know. But also honesty, being honest about the feedback and being honest with yourself, being able to say this fucking sucks, this song sucks, or this comic sucks, and not lying to yourself. I think that's a hard thing in the creative process is being honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think sometimes they can kind of hinder you because I'll look at pages that I do. I'm like, that looks like shit, dude. Like, you can do so much better than that. And then, like, it'll kind of get me into a funk where the next few pages I draw are just shit, anyways, because I was just, like, down on myself.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, fuck it. Rather than just looking at it like, okay, well, you maybe whatever you did wrong on that page, whatever you think you did wrong on that song, learn from that and then apply it to, the next thing that you do rather than let that one affect you.
Right.
I always think about that with albums. Like, you'll listen to an album, like, dude, you kind of just, dropped the ball on that one. Man.
Yeah. I still give people's albums a chance though.
I do too. There's always that, like, I always say, like, because I love Pink Floyd, but when somebody tells me, like, okay, I want to listen to this album, like, album's not very good. Like, this idea that, like, you have to love everything that this one person's doing.
Right.
It's like I love Grant Morrison comics, like, 100%. But there's certain ones that's like I could take or leave them,
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way with most music that I like. Like for instance, I've been recently getting into making like trap beats, like straight up whatever's on the radio, those kinds of beats, but I cannot handle the rapping over it. But like I've for some reason I've been listening to like I forgot I was watching these like videos, like these deconstructed videos of like the producers that make these rap songs, and when I hear the song without the singing on, I'm like, man, that's cool. It's very simple, it's pretty emotional, you can make it emotional. And so I started doing it and I'm like, holy shit, like I can encompass a lot of myself into just that kind of I don't care what goes on top of it, but like the musical aspect of it, I can inject my personality and like my feelings and my thoughts and stuff into this piece of music that sure someone can go ahead and ruin with whatever crap they're gonna rap about over it, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
But that's like like I don't necessarily like that style of music, but it's fun to make. So
do you mind if we take a quick break?
Yeah, we're gonna take a quick break, gonna play a little song for everyone that wants to stay on and listen to this song that I've never played for anyone in a lifetime. It is called, I believe it's called Down Here. Yeah, we'll be back in about a minute. That was a short song clip. I thought it was longer. Barry's still not back. I'll just take this minute to play some unreleased music that I have that no one's heard. Oh, here's a song I'm working on actually. This will be a cool one. It's a little bit of a houseier song. By the way, my Break Night album will be coming out soon. It is in the final stages. Here's a song I'm working on called Pocket Fluff. Damn, that kick drum sounds good.
You like that?
I spent so much time on that kick drum. It's so fluffy. Yeah, that's a song I'm working on right now.
Like a brand new one?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you do like the little intro to what it was gonna be.
Oh, well, no, that I played a song that was only like a minute and 10 seconds, so I needed something else. But that I have like I made a little folder of songs that I'm currently working on, just for moments like that. Just a little bit of candy for anyone that's listening that likes music.
There's some people that don't like music. They can take it or leave it.
I wouldn't say that there's some people that don't like music. I think that the better term would be they're indifferent.
No, they don't like it. They just hate it.
That's weird to me.
Like it's like nails on a chalkboard to them. This isn't the music. They don't understand it.
So is this going to be the portion of the podcast where we get into picking out things we don't like that people do? We could do that after the break.
I don't know. There's not that many things that like people do that annoy me.
Here's one thing that really, really, really fucking irritates me. And
pretentiousness.
Well, that, but this
narcissism.
This ties into it. The saying, "You have no idea, bro. You have no idea." Like when people say that shit, it's so irritating. I don't know what it is about it, but like I think it's because they're classifying.
Or you don't even know.
Yeah, you don't even know, bro. No, you don't even know. You don't even know. I think it's because they're saying to me and I could be wrong on this. I don't know, but what I'm hearing, what I was hearing when I hear that is you don't know what I've been through. I'm putting you, I'm judging you in like one tiny little instant and saying that I know everything that you've ever been through, and I know everything that you've dealt with or whatever, and I'm saying that you have no idea how I feel or whatever. I just that's not fair. It's a trashy sentence to say.
Yeah, I don't really think about it too much.
That doesn't irk you?
No. I think what actually bothers me a little bit is that saying doesn't bother me at all. We can go on that, continue on that. But what bothers me is when somebody will say, let's say for example, we're talking about music, and then like, oh yeah, like I just learned that kick drum, like I've worked so hard on it, and then somebody just interrupts out of nowhere and be like, dude, I know kick drums like
one-uppers.
Yeah, I don't like that. That is like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Like, okay, you just stop and you just ended the conversation.
Psychologically, do you think that that's a defense mechanism because they deep down they're not
They probably has some sort of issue.
Complex, yeah.
Yeah, like somebody like, I think people who are really really good at something, they just don't go around saying I'm really really good at something.
No, they're modest.
Yeah,
humble.
I think that's what irritates me the most. It's just like, okay, because like if you said instead, let's say you're talking about the kick drum, right? Let's just say about guitar, like, oh yeah, I've been playing guitar for a while. I'm like, yeah, I'm really good at guitar, dude. Like, I'm so good at it. That offers nothing to the conversation. But if you say like, oh yeah, I've been playing for years as well. What are you working on?
Right.
You can still introduce yourself into the conversation and give some sort of credit of, hey, I've been playing for a while as well. And then just go on for there. But like, you immediately stop the conversation. It almost seems just like okay. It does nothing for anything.
I think, yeah, there's this. I think it's because, and I'm bringing in social media. Surprise, surprise. I think it has a lot to do with like having a sense of like I'm important too. People like want to be like, oh well, I did that too, or I can do that too, and that sort of thing. They want to be.
I was laughing at that too.
What, my friend Stefan?
Yeah. It's like, you don't even know, bro.
No, he's a phenomenal music producer. So he.
Oh, is he talking about the music one?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
In some right, he's the guy that's mixing the Break Night album.
Okay.
And but in some sense.
Oh, so what he was saying is like, yeah, you might be good at mixing, but like, have you met me? That type of thing.
Exactly.
No, I have not.
Well, you'll hear his mixing when the album's done.
Yeah, I remember like first hearing about mixing maybe 10 years ago. I seriously thought songs were just like, you just put them all together and then that's it. That's the song.
Right.
Because I remember like seeing the control stuff when I watched like Behind the Music, that sort of thing. And like the controls are moving by themselves. Like that's really weird. I always thought, like when somebody does something for seemingly no fucking reason at all, I thought that's what they were doing. So like in the thing, you're like, okay, we need to turn this up. Just like kind of just fidgeting with shit. Like,
yeah,
you're not doing anything to the song at all.
Right. Well, like we were talking
earlier. That's
my
limited knowledge on how to like actually record stuff.
Yeah. Well, like we were talking earlier about playing guitar or whatever, having like soul, emotion, and technical. There's like three aspects to a song too. It's like arrangement, mixing, and mastering, and all three of equal importance. The start is an arrangement, and if arrangement is good, then the mixing aspect will be easier. If the mixing's good, then the mastering will be next to nothing. That sort of thing. So there's kind of like three aspects of that too. What were we talking about before that?
Just things that irritate us, like saying.
Yeah. Well, like you were talking about how, like one up. Oh fuck! What were you talking about?
Well, mine was saying like basically kind of people who interject in the conversation saying like kind of gloating about how great and awesome they are.
Yeah, so I think that stems from because like we all want recognition, right? When in like Facebook provides that. Like if you need some sort of recognition at the moment, you're feeling down, you post something, you get a couple likes, you feel better. And that's what it's creating this kind of like weird this weird thing that we do now where we're like when we're talking to people, like when I'm telling you about a story, like it's shifting the attention from you to like me. So like when it's over, you need your serotonin, drip or your dopamine drip. So you got to get in and post your status real quick too, especially when like people are watching a conversation. Like let's say like we're in a restaurant and we're servers and we're all talking about something and you're talking about what you did last night, and everyone's paying attention and like giving you attention, well then that other person is like, oh dude, yeah, you have no idea, like I was at the same bar 3 months ago with my cousin's best friend's girlfriend's dietitian pediatric person that sold them gummy bears in 1995, and dude, like what happened to you wasn't shit, like what happened to me was even more crazier, you know.
Yeah, that stuff's so annoying.
Yeah,
man.
it's because like they need more likes than you need.
Yeah, what do you think that is? Because like, for me, it's like I'm pretty comfortable. You know, with everybody else, like there's certain aspects of you that your insecurities, right? Everybody has those, but for the most part, I'm pretty comfortable with who I am. I really think people who are like that just aren't comfortable with who they are.
I think it might be a lack. Maybe it's a lack of like that of boys on whatever they're doing in life. Maybe they don't get like.
But I don't think, like, just speaking from my personal experience, I've never really had that many. Like,
What?
Like attaboys.
Oh yeah.
Like I got participation trophies because I grew up in the 90s. Like that was the only thing. And then beyond that, like,
fucking ruined society.
right? I think, yeah. Do they still do that?
Yes. More.
need to
They
get
don't
rid of
keep.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they don't keep
This
score.
is literally like a black and white conversation that people, and I don't. I have a position. I have like my opinion on it. I can see both sides. I don't like how like heated the debate on this gets, like participation trophies. But like they don't keep score in like young kids sports games.
Yeah, well, I can kind of see why they wouldn't, but somebody, I don't know what has to win. But like I was saying, like personally for me is I never really got like, gold stars and you've
Right.
been really great, things like that. Of course I've gotten them, but not as many. Like, so I don't necessarily think that it's because I think what it was. Okay, let me just try to finish these thoughts before I kind of like bounce around like I'm doing. Is I don't think maybe that's the entire case of it. Maybe they've gotten an abundant amount of it, but it actually wasn't real.
Exactly, and that creates false reinforcements within someone. So it's kind of like, and it also has the adverse effect on, say, someone who excels at something. If it's like, let's say that you and I are 6-year-olds, or let's say like 8-year-olds, and you're a phenomenal soccer player. Like you have like this weird ability you're really good at soccer at a young age and you don't even know it. I fucking suck. Soccer's not my thing. We're not keeping score. No one's better than anyone else. You're not going to be made aware of that talent. So then let's say you get somewhere else and no one ever told you you're really good at it. So it kind of just like fades away in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
When in reality, like you could go play for, Sporting KC or some shit like that. I think that's where the whole participation thing is flawed, because it's not, yeah, sure, it's making the kid that's not fucking good at the thing aware, feel like he belongs and stuff. But I think the natural course of life, if it plays out the way that it should naturally play out for every individual, everyone will eventually figure out what they're good at,
Yeah.
And no one should be given false, like, if I suck fucking at singing and I really do suck, someone should tell me that. They shouldn't tell me, oh, you have a really good voice, giving them false hopes.
That's what we're talking about earlier too, is like kind of building up the lie in your head about certain things.
Right.
We're talking about like memories. Is like, oh yeah, everybody said I'm really good, and you can clearly see that in like these singing competition videos or
Right.
TV shows. But do you think that these people who are just constantly butting in, saying like, oh yeah, like this one time, that happened to you, like this happened to me, type of thing, do they really think people give a shit? Like that's what I've always wanted to know. That
Yeah.
is like, okay, so we're around, like, you're
Like,
saying
what's the
scenario.
purpose of them saying that?
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're not really contributing anything, if you're telling it as like, oh, here's my experience, I get that. But you're like, nothing, what you experienced. This is, like, it's like the one.
The one-upper, yeah.
Do they honestly, like, the person who's doing it? Do they honestly feel like people give a shit? You're like, oh wow, yeah, now they're on me.
I
Like,
almost
look at
think
me.
it's like it's a word vomit. It's almost like, I think that it could be either A, they think they want to compare, they want the attention, or B, it's like a word vomit thing. Sometimes though,
Because those people who are like around those people are like, dude, shut the fuck up.
yeah, well, but there also is like a connector part of it, like if it is a genuine conversation where like egos aren't involved, and it's kind of just like, oh, I want to relate to you on that.
Yeah, but that's where I was getting at. That's different than me saying oh yeah, I've been learning
Oh,
guitar.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really good at guitar, bro. But it's like, oh, I play guitar as well.
Yeah.
What are you learning? Or if you say like a story like, oh, my car broke down, like, oh, my car broke down as well, and this is what happened. What was wrong with yours? That's actually engaging the conversation. But
Right.
if you're just telling a story to one up it, it offers nothing to the conversation.
Right.
It just shows like, okay, like, because like whenever you're done talking to somebody, and okay, let's say you're having this, if you're ever curious and like, well, what exactly does he mean by that? Like, what I personally mean by like, okay, one-upping versus contributing to the conversation is, if you find yourself asking that person more questions about their story than what you originally started with, they're a one-upper. Like, oh, really? That happened to you? Oh, what happened with that? And like, now they're just trying to, exchange pleasantries towards
Right,
your
right.
story, rather than that person saying like, oh, I can actually relate to it. Here's, so that happened to you. Like, what did you do? Like, actually try, even though like that, I just literally said the exact same thing. But you know what I mean is like, you can tell where if you're just done with your story, if that is it, it's yours is completely done.
Right.
They one up to you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's like some sort of factor of like having the last word with it too, where some people like they have this weird instinctual tick where they have to be the last person to say something, so they'll just try. I hear a lot of people having conversations back and forth, like observing in everyday life, and someone will be like, okay, yeah, cool, it'll be 350. All right, awesome, thank you. And then the other person will be like, yeah, like 350 is fine, but and they'll just keep going and tail ending it, and like have to have the last word. It happened. I saw it happen today at work. The initial conversation was, black and white. It had a question and it had an answer. Then the person said, thank you. I was just, I just feel like there's always this need to like follow up and justify like, oh, well, I was just making sure this because I thought this.
Dude, that's
Oh,
so
yeah,
annoying.
it's fine. Don't worry about it. This and that. Yeah, I'm just, because this person's like this, and that conversation just because neither person wants to be wrong or not have the last word. And it's just silly to see these things unfold.
Yeah, I was at a grocery store and this dude was talking to me about, he's like, I know it's in July, or it's July right now, but in Halloween, guess what I'm gonna be? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Just bag my shit, please. And he goes, I'm gonna be a shoplifter. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Do you want to know why? Sure, I got like 2 more minutes until you're done bagging my stuff. Sure, because then I can just take stuff from here without paying for it. Like, are you trying to work out a routine of like
Right.
jokes? What are you trying to do here? You're making me feel really, really awkward. Do
Right.
you not get that? But yeah, I know what you mean. Is when somebody will say, like, oh yeah, on those reports, what do you do with the heading? And then your boss will say, just do whatever font, but make sure it's at like 14 instead of 12, so they can clearly see it. You're like, okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that I was doing it correctly. I am doing that, but thanks for like letting me know and reassuring me. Like, okay, cool, thanks. Like, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the help.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It just
shut the
it
fuck up and
continues.
just, like, go on, man. Like, just move on.
I just don't. What is that? Why do people need to do that?
I just think it's probably some sort of insecurity, and they don't want to be like, when I ask a question, I'm not afraid to, like, when you will say something like, hey, do you know about this? I'm like, no. Like, there's a lot of things I don't know. So I'm like, no, I don't know what it is. Like, okay, well, let me tell you, and then so I can. But I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I kind of know, but they don't want to feel like they're stupid. Like, oh,
Right.
well, you know what about the heading? They don't want to feel like they were being shown as stupid.
Yeah,
or something.
they're like checking themselves to make sure that that they. No one wants to be wrong. No one wants.
Well, I don't mind being wrong.
I don't give a shit.
I'm
Who fucking
wrong about
cares?
a lot
I
of stuff.
love learning.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, the biggest humbling experience that you can ever have for like that sort of thing, to check your wrongness and put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable, is creating something and then asking for feedback.
Yeah.
You cannot be big-headed and I can't think of the proper word for it.
I know what you're saying, because what they'll do is, like, let's say you drew a picture of fruit, like a still life, and then you ask somebody about, like, okay, well, give me your honest opinion on the still life that I drew. And somebody says, okay, well, I can tell by your value or shading, the value range that you have, there's not a lot of contrast. It looks just like a bunch of muddy grays. And then the person says, well, the reason why I was doing that is because of this. Like, did you want my feedback, or did you want to
Right.
explain to me your fucking art piece?
Right.
Like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that in order to be better and to grow and to learn, you have to be okay with being wrong. And for some reason, nowadays, people get so defensive on being wrong. You
Yeah.
know? Like, Oh, my friend Stefan said I love being wrong too. But like I'll
It feels
like
so right.
like I'll send him music. Like I'll send him shit I'm working on, and I'll be like, "What do you think?" And he will give me his feedback because I trust his ear and I trust his perception of music, and I can take what it was, but I learn from it and I get better from it. You know, just like if you were to submit your comic book stuff to, you know, the best comic book writer, you're willing to accept that because you want to get better, and you know that you're human and we know that we're not perfect, but we want to get that feedback, and we don't always have to be right, you know?
Yeah.
But there's this weird thing now in the world where people like are terrified to be wrong, or and maybe it's like kind of like looking like a fool kind of thing that's in their head. It you know, takes away from their, because we're all like portraying ourselves as you know, whatever we want to be portrayed as, right? Like you wear the certain things you do and you act a certain way because you want to be portrayed a certain way.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yeah, so if I'm wrong at something, it's a detriment to how I'm perceiving myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes this is kind of going on a little small tangent. Is I don't do it anymore, but when it became really cool to like comic book stuff, because like back in the day, you know, if I would have wore this shirt in 2002, you're a nerd, dude. Like we know you.
Yeah.
You know, but like now people just wear comic book stuff. Like I'm all about it now because it's getting more people like into the, you know, the comic book stuff. But like for so long, I would get made fun of for like liking comics and stuff, and then people are wearing shirts. I'm like, do you even know? You know, like I was saying, like the Flash. Do you know?
Yeah.
Who, you know, do you know how Barry Allen died? Do you know, like? Cause
You say that?
No. That's the stuff that I would think about when I was younger. You know, like like they would wear like a Nirvana shirt. Like, do you even listen to Nirvana?
Yeah.
You know, like that sort of stuff. And now I'm just like, I don't care. You know, support it, whatever
Right.
you are. But I think that little tangent is like, who you're trying to portray yourself as. Are you trying to portray yourself as a comic book fan? Because I'm pretty sure you won't know this thing. You know.
Right.
And then I'll go in and I'll say something, and the person's like, actually, no, this is actually what happened in the comic. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Well, everyone also nowadays there's that whole thing where like I listened to this person before they were popular.
That irritates me. That's another thing that irritates me is like, so what?
Yeah.
I listened to them when they were popular. Like, what does it make a difference as?
Yeah, I got this. So I joined this group. It's called like the Podcasters Roundtable or something, and it's like this group of podcasters. They each have their own individual podcast, but then they have like a roundtable podcast, and it's like 10 or 12 of them or however many, and they'll send out like newsletters and stuff, and they'll be like, hey, if you want to be on our podcast, submit your podcast, we'll listen, see if you're a good fit, you can come be on our podcast. But then like they'll send out an email, like we got an email in our Gmail account the other day that was like, the headline was, are there too many podcasters? Everyone thinks there's a podcaster now. And I'm just like, that is the worst fucking mentality to have. Is like, oh, now that we're getting some traction, I'm a fucking pro at this. You know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the mentality I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Like, well, you know, I guess Joe Rogan is one of the older podcasters or that sort of thing. Like, he doesn't say that. But it's like, you know, he has been doing it for a long time. This podcast roundtable thing, I don't know how old it is, whatever. But they weren't the first people to do it. But now that they're like getting to a certain point, they can start to be, you know, the shade throwers. And like, oh, well, we're the pros now. And, oh, there's too many podcasters. Or, you know, like the same thing can be said for like, there's some music producers that are like, I've been doing this forever. There's too many music producers. Not everyone can be a music producer, you know, like being very like, and it's like, dude, come on. Think back to the day where all you wanted to do was be a music producer and you would do anything you could. Or think back to the day where all you wanted was 1,000 subscribers to your podcast. Who are you to take that away from another young aspiring person trying to do that? You should be fucking supportive.
See, that's where I think that the real talent is like is when you achieve some sort of level. What you do is, instead of keep on going forward aggressively, is why you like let's say you're on the plateau, right? Is Joe Rogan does this constantly. You look back and raise your fellow up with him. Like,
right.
Like he'll have Sean Carroll, who just started his podcast. He's like, listen to Sean Carroll's podcast. Like, he's always supporting other podcasts and saying like, listen to this one.
Right.
This one's new. This one's been around for a while. But I always feel like when musicians or even artists when they're like, I've been here for a while, I deserve this sort of thing. All these other people are just kind of fake. They're just trying to take me or dethrone me. I think it's like, dude, one day you're not going to be that popular. Like, that's going to happen. But I feel like the people who are like, they have some sort of longevity, if that makes sense, is when they try to help out others too. And that's the whole idea is, it's called a community for a reason, right? Is to help other people out.
Right. Yeah, and I just the whole like that whole mentality, I just don't understand where it comes from. Like we all breathe oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all need food, we all need water. We're all here together. We should be supporting each other. Not just cuz you got to where you wanted to be. Like there's two people. There's like people that got to where they wanted to be and then they helped, like you said. And then there's people that get there and are like, well, I'm here now and I'm not bringing anyone else with me because
they close the doors.
Because they're afraid. Because something in their mind is like, well, I worked so hard to get here that no one else can. I'm afraid that I can't withstand the test of time of staying here for that long.
Yeah.
I think that might be what it could be. But I just think that, I mean, I agree there's a lot of content. Like there's fuck tons of podcasts and there's fuck tons of music. But guess what else? There's fuck tons of people. And there's there's fuck tons of people that have their own thoughts and have their own visions and stuff. There's one person to listen to another person for everyone in the world, And I just think that kind of like mindset of like, no one else can do this because I'm doing it, because I was the first, or because I reached a certain point, that like coincides with that whole one-uppery, one-uppery, that's what we're going to call it from now on. Like fuckery, but one-uppery.
Yeah. Like
that whole mentality. Yeah, I don't know like what the gene is or what the biological reasoning for that sort of like mentality. And it's hard too, because I mean, sometimes I get a little jaded about things, or I feel a certain negative way about things too. And then I just have to like think like, no, you should just be positive,
Yeah, plus those people are way better to be around too. It's like if let's say like, I don't know, whatever you're trying to aspire to be, and then you meet the person that, was a catalyst for you doing it, and then it's just like an asshole about it. It kind of just like, it doesn't feel good. But then when somebody's like, oh yeah, let me listen to it, like, or let me see it, like, just actively interested in, like, this is really good. Those people are just, that's kind of how I feel about like Dave Grohl, for an example, if we're going to go back to him, is just like, when he talks about music to other people and wants them to like learn music, he seems so sincere about the stuff he's saying. And I feel that way like about like, certain artists too. They're just like, yeah, like I'm glad that, you tried. Like I always think that like, if you have somebody that's successful at something and you see them around kids that are trying to do the same thing and they're just like happy to show them and teach them, they're on the right path.
Right.
But because I remember, I'm not going to name his name at all, but there was a comic book artist who doesn't really draw anymore. He created a comic, and this is the only thing I'll say. He created a comic that ended up being a TV show, like a wildly successful TV show, but he only drew 6 issues of this show. Or I'm sorry, 6 issues of this comic. And he became extremely popular because his TV became popular. So I'm standing in line to see some other artists, and he was there. And there's this little kid that got brought up. And, when you go to these conventions, any artist or writer can say, I will only sign your stuff if you pay me money. Someone was like, give me as much stuff as you want to sign or draw or whatever, I'll do it. And then someone will say, like, we accept donations, that type of thing. Well, he wanted $10 to talk to you. Like, if you just wanted to talk to him, you pay him, because he had this ego built up, right? And his art is good, don't get me wrong. This little kid walked up.
Is it The Walking Dead?
I'm not going to name names or anything. So this little kid walks up, and he wanted to talk to him. I think the kid was maybe like 10 or 12 or somewhere around there with his dad. And the kid was asking him questions and everything, and he was just down. Like, his head was down. He was drawing everything. You can clearly hear the kid. There's a line behind him, down. And then the dad pulled out $10. It was $10 to talk to him, and put $10 on the table, and his face looked up and goes, hey, how are you doing?
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, no, that to me is just like so wrong. Dude.
Right.
It irritated the shit out of me.
Yeah, but when I think about that though too, like think about the quantity of people. Like let's say you're like the Beatles, right?
By the way, it wasn't the writer of The Walking Dead because he's really fucking cool.
Oh. Well, let's say like you're like the Beatles or like someone huge, and you really do love what you have no idea how the fuck you got to this point. Let's not use the Beatles. Let's use someone like I don't even know. A music producer.
I'm terrible with producers. You can still use the Beatles if you want.
Okay, so the Beatles. So let's just say that you get to you love music, your intent was pure, but for some crazy shit, your shit took off. And now there's millions of people that love your stuff. Are you required to like talk to every single one of them and give all of them the same amount of time? Is that your responsibility? As like an artist and as a person that they all look up to? I mean, I can see like the kind of like great, you have to create some sort of like.
Well, there's this artist, I don't remember what year it was, but he's actually a writer, and it's Jonathan Hickman, who, I don't know, if you've ever seen The Avengers, I'll just try to like relate it to people who Jonathan Hickman is. There's a few characters in the newest Avengers Infinity War. One of them is called the Ebony Maw. That character was created by Jonathan Hickman. Jonathan Hickman, when I went up to ask him, like, hey, will you sign some stuff? He's like, yeah, I'll sign anything. I'll deface anything you want me to because that means you bought my stuff. Like, he was so happy. Every single person he talked to, he was just so happy to talk to him. So I think you kind of owe it to these people. Like, I remember watching this video with Jared Leto, and these people came up to him and were like, you didn't play any of the songs I wanted you to play. And he goes, I played a bunch of new songs and a bunch of old songs that were like popular for people to play. What did you want to hear? And you're like, well, just stuff that was older that you don't really play live. I wanted to hear that stuff. He's like, well, name a song. Like, maybe, next time I'll play that song and have it for you at like a different venue or something. And then it was just kind of going on, and they just wanted to bitch at Jared Leto about it. And he's like, I'm done with you. I can't please you, and walk away. So sometimes like that is like you have to kind of, you want to help, or you want to be around the people that helped get you where you are. But at the same point, if they're just shit on you, you got to know when to be like, I'm done with you. That type of thing.
Right.
I feel like that's kind of with anything with art is it could be music, drawing, just whatever. There's going to be some people who just dislike you. And like when I talk to people,
can't please them all.
Yeah, so there's this. I remember watching this one video, and this guy is talking shit on Grant Morrison. It was like a video on like local comic book companies.
Grant Morrison is Barry's favorite comic book writer, by the way. He wrote Batman.
He's gonna do Green Lantern coming in
Doom
November.
Patrol.
They're making that into a TV show. Some of his
The Filth.
Yeah, The Filth is great.
The Invisibles.
He has the Flex Mentallo, The Invisibles, and The Filth as like his like little trifecta of kind of like this weird metafiction story.
Yeah, but for like people for a broader sense.
Okay, if you ever want to read the best superhero comic, in my opinion, read Grant Morrison's JLA run from the late 90s. That, hands down, is the best.
What is JLA?
Justice League of America.
Yeah.
That is the best. It's just super cool shit.
I realized that when we like preface these things,
people have no idea who it is.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Another thing he did is on Sci-Fi, there's a TV show called Happy. He created the comic book for that and is an executive producer on that TV show. Just to try to relate it to other people. But there's this guy talking shit on Grant Morrison. And I get how you might not like Grant Morrison's stuff. Grant Morrison, his stuff is non-linear. So it's like beginning, middle, and end. It's like all this jumbled up stuff that is supposed to kind of mess with your head to help navigate you through a story.
He's like the David Lynch of comic book writers.
I can't really relate that because I've never seen any.
Well,
David
from
Lynch
what
movies.
I've read.
Okay, yeah. Also he did All-Star Superman, which is held as like one of the best Superman stories. But I was kind of defensive on stuff because like what this guy was saying, talking shit on Grant Morrison, was I just don't like him. Like, why don't you like him? Is it because he is one of the most influential comic book writers of all time? Or is it because you actually don't like his writing? Like, explain why you don't like him. Then I can get that. But I don't like when people just say, like, oh, I just don't like him. There's something about him I don't like. Like, what is it? Is it like a jealousy thing that, like, maybe you wish you could write comics like that sort of thing? But, yeah, I feel like the way...
That happens a lot. Jealousy factor of, like, people not liking people, or let's say, like, you're a guitarist and you don't like another guitarist that's in the same scene because they're better than you. And you just don't like them because I've been very, very guilty of that before. Well, not recently, but
that's what I was saying about the whole T-shirt things. Like, do you even read The Flash? Like when I was younger,
yeah. I
think it's more of like a young mentality, and you kind of have just come to terms with like, oh no, they're actually supporting the whole thing.
Right.
But you'll get bands Like if somebody's like a band's really popular, I'm like, oh, I just don't like that band. You know, like why? Because they're popular. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I fucking hate 311.
well, okay, but you can explain why you don't like 311, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But that's what I was saying is like, okay, you don't like this artist or this musician because they're famous,
Yeah.
because they're well known. Like, I just don't like their stuff. Like if somebody asks me like, oh, do you care for Jackson Pollock's art? I'll tell you no, I don't like it.
You don't like it?
No, I don't understand it. That's the reason why I don't like it. It's like, okay, I understand the emotion and like the mathematical shit that he was doing with like the mixed media that he was spraying everywhere. To me, when I see it, it doesn't look like art, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
It was just like shit that somebody just like threw shit everywhere.
Yeah. Art's always in the eye of the beholder.
Well, that's even like going on the lines of like music and stuff like that. Even books, you know, like you and I can read the same book and fucking hate it or love it.
Right,
You know,
right.
and come to different ideas on it, but just to shit on it because you know it's popular
Right.
and you have no reason to why you don't like it.
Right.
It kind of went on a little tangent there. I think I got heated because somebody said they didn't like Grant Morrison. And then I just wanted to go on it. But I think the way you feel about David Lynch is the way I feel about Grant Morrison.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I've read The Filth, not the whole thing, but I've read some of that, and I've read The Invisibles, and it's definitely the same kind of like macabre, all over the place universe, dreams, psychedelic, you
Yeah.
know, interesting stuff. It's just not mundane.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when cause I read comics my entire life, you know, and then I read his Animal Man because I had like rewards points on my credit card that was going to expire. It's like, I guess I'll just buy Animal Man. Didn't really know who Grant Morrison was, and I read it, and I was because this comic came out in like the late 80s, and I got this in 2016, and I read it, I'm like, holy shit, you can do this with comics?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I want to dive into all of this stuff, and then since then, for like the past 2 years, because I've never really liked writers. Writers are just like, okay, whatever. I've always been into artists because that's what I like to do.
Right.
He's like the first writer that I got into, and then like the second one was like Jeff Johns. Like Jeff Johns' shit is great too, and then from there it helped me branch off into different writers.
Yeah, I want to start making like the podcast videos a little more Lynchian, like these lamps down here. Like I wonder what it would look like if like the light was turned off, and it was like just it was just the bottoms of our face, because like you've never seen any of his.
Well, let's do that. Let's try different things, man.
You've never seen any of his films, but like
I might have seen a film or two. I'm really bad at remembering stuff like that. Yeah, see, that sets the mood. You know what we should also do is
there's still lights, but I want them to be like under us, so
We'll
like
have to
our
put 'em,
faces look creepy.
just set them right here next to us. What I really want to do is to get like visual stuff is dress in costumes.
Well,
I think once it gets cooler
I
outside,
want
I'm gonna do that.
animations. I want to do the animations.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to like
Have you
study
been
that
putting your
stuff.
$5 away?
Yeah, I have. I got $10.
So Barry's putting away $5 every shift because we're going to start doing animation ads.
Well, I was actually gonna do more than that. What I wanted to do is like, you know, like if you go to our YouTube channel, you will see, which is Reality Observation Podcast reports. God, I can't even remember the name sometimes. Reality Observation Report Podcast.
Yes.
If you go there, we are taking bits of some of the stuff that we say in the podcast and just show you what's going on in them. Like for like 3 minutes or so, just like what we enjoyed talking about the most. What I would like to do with those is, instead of us just sitting here on the couch talking about it, is like I'll give an example. The first one we did was about Forrest Gump being like every iteration of Tom Hanks' films, is actually show that, like animate Forrest Gump running and then daydreaming about being on a castaway or being in a spaceship, or you know, creating Pixar, or being a toy, you know, just whatever it may possibly be, like that sort of thing. Just like draw in.
Oh shit, dude! My friend Evan just signed on. I have not talked to him in forever. He'd be a great guest. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Interrupt.
You can always give shout outs to people, but that's kind of what the whole idea of getting the
Yeah, and it just
animation.
creates. I think that for this, we want this podcast to be like more of like a medium for both of our arts, and how can we combine them?
Yeah, like right now what we're doing with the music thing with you, getting, you know, your music out there, try to do some art with me. But while I was explaining that, I had an even better idea than animation that you're probably not going to enjoy.
What?
One is sock puppets
No.
or puppets on strings.
Wait, but animated.
No, like I'll record myself with like a sock puppet and then like you, and then we'll just like.
I feel like that's been done.
I know, but not for this podcast.
I go more towards the idea of us creating Photoshop characters of ourselves and then reenact. But when we do the funny bits, it's not like us sitting here. It's
Yeah, that's
like
what I'm saying. We
us
just, like,
living it.
yeah. But instead of animation, we use socks and puppets.
If it's creepy.
Of course, is there anything that's not creepy about sock puppets? What was that Nickelodeon show as a kid, like the sock puppet stuff? And then it would introduce the TV show, and then it would go into the TV show. What was that?
Oh shit.
So the person walks up, he's like wheeling this cart around, and he stops and he opens it up, and it's like puppets talking and shit, and then it goes straight into the episode.
Is that
And then it closes up, and then it just wheels
were
it away.
were they like heads with like little shoes?
Yeah, it was like big ass heads, right?
Yeah.
And then tiny little bodies. What was that?
Oh my god, I know exactly. See,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
like
this is
puppet.
like what we were talking about earlier with memories. I don't know if that is an actual memory or if
No, that's a real show.
No, I know, but it could totally be one of those things that is not a memory.
No, I'm pretty sure this was probably
No,
a
it
memory,
was.
yeah.
It started with a D, like Dingledore, Dungletown,
Yeah, what was that? It was such a weird show.
Tinseltown.
Man, I kind of want to know what that is.
We should wrap it up.
But the funny thing is, real quick about the memory is, I had no idea that existed in my head about that TV show. Didn't even think about it for years, right? Until I was doing the puppet thing. And then instantly, that brought back a memory of a TV show because I was going to make a thing, and then brought that memory back.
Right.
Memory is really weird to
Yeah.
tie it all in together.
Follow us on all of the social things. Reality Observation Report Podcast. If you have guest suggestions, please give them to us. Leave us reviews. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Please, please, please. We're trying to get this thing going a little.
Trying to expand our horizons with
Yeah.
listeners. Also, too, we talked a lot about memory at the beginning of this episode. Is give us a false memory that you've ever had. That like you find out later on that it actually wasn't real, and how you came to like realize that it wasn't real. Was it through conversation with friends or family, or maybe the idea of trying to remember something that you just can't remember?
Yeah.
Or if
That's
you've
good.
ever had the there's a fucking spider on me. If you I just let it go. I don't want to. I was just trying to get it away.
Well, I don't want it to crawl on me.
Oh well. Anyways, if you ever had that recollection hypnosis, if you have any experiences on that stuff, let us know too. But yeah, subscribe, like, follow, comment, and all that stuff. So, adios, amigos.
Yeah, and share with your friends. Also, we're doing on Saturdays and Sundays. The day kind of depends on when Barry works, but we do existential breakfast every Sunday or Saturday.
It'll be this Sunday this week.
Oh, it'll be Sunday this week, and that's around 11:30. We'd like that to be more of an interactive piece, where everyone chimes in, and we might even start doing like a thing where we get a phone and someone can call in, and we can have people call in, so it's more of like an interactive thing. Yeah. But so this outro song will actually be a song from the Break Night up and coming album entitled Weekend Warrior. Barry did the artwork for it. Stefan has mixed it, and then we're gonna have someone master it. But we appreciate anyone listening, and we will see you next time.
Adios, my friends.